It is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. If you were wondering where you were in history, we're here at the Athens-Clarke County City Hall for two sessions this evening. We'll have a special called session to conduct public hearing on the proposed FY26 budget, and then we'll proceed with our regularly scheduled agenda-setting session. So I'll begin by asking the clerk to call roll for us.
Davenport.
Here.
Link.
Here.
Taylor. Here. Wright.
Present.
Fisher. Johnson.
Here.
Culpepper.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Thornton.
Here.
Hamby.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll begin with our Civility Pledge provided to us by the Georgia Municipal Association, which reads that the way we govern ourselves is often as important as the positions we take, that our collective decisions will be better when differing views have had the opportunity to be fully vetted and considered, that all people have the right to be treated with respect, courtesy, and openness, that we value all input, and we commit to conduct ourselves at all times with civility and courtesy to each other. So this first gathering is for input on the proposed FY26 budget, which is set for approval, final approval on June 10th, and will take effect on July 1st here of calendar year 2025, and will be the budget that proceeds through June 30th, 2026. Public input on the proposed FY26 budget is effectively in the same format as much of the public input that we'll have for the remainder of the evening, which is to say every individual will have a 3-minute opportunity at the podium. You'll see a light in front of the clerk. It'll turn green when you begin speaking, yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and red when your 3 minutes is concluded, and I'll thank you for your time with us. So, given that that is the case, I'd like to call everybody to line up at the podium if you'd like to provide input on the FY26 budget. And for each person, just if you'll begin by giving us your name and your place of residence, and then your 3 minutes will start.
Aaron Barger, Inverness Road, Athens, Georgia, Clarke County. Good evening. We live on a fixed income. My husband served in Vietnam. I don't want a handout. I just don't want to go to bed hungry, said a neighbor in the heart of Normaltown. Without the food box, I'd be skipping meals so my daughter has enough to eat, shared a single mother on Athens' east side. When I get food, I share with others on my street who are worse off than me, said a senior adult near Georgia Square Mall. These are the voices of our neighbors and the voices and dire realities of your constituents. My name is Aaron Barger, and I have the honor of serving as president and CEO of the Food Bank of Northeast Georgia. Last year, through our partnerships and programs, your food bank distributed more than 15.5 million pounds of food, with nearly 1/3 of those pounds being distributed right here at home in Athens-Clarke County. 18% of this county is food insecure. 18%. That's nearly 1 in 5 neighbors, children, seniors, veterans, working families, living with uncertainty about their next meal. It is important to note that out of our 15-county service area, Athens-Clarke County has the highest rate of food insecurity, and it is climbing. I want to acknowledge the reality that you're navigating here tonight. Tight resources and many organizational needs. We respect your positions and the weight of these decisions. Meanwhile, other counties in our region have stepped up to support our work financially. While in Clarke County, we have continued to show up and not ask for support until now. Prices are up, while food insecurity is growing, with more and faster growing need in this county than any other in our region. The meal gap here is wider than we can close alone. We need your help. Importantly, we serve this county as a resource and emergency preparedness center, supplying food to 78 partners across this county alone, nonprofits and congregations, shelters, schools, neighborhood pantries. Your investment in your food bank doesn't stop with us. It spreads across the entire ecosystem of food security. We are the safety net. And we can show you where food goes and how it arrives. We track it, we measure it, we know who's being reached and where the gaps are, because our neighbors and their experience matter that much to us. This is the work of your food bank. I can assure you that with urgency, delaying this investment will cost us more down the road in healthcare, education, and workforce readiness. It is more affordable to nourish now than to repair later, and it is simply the right thing to do. Our request is not for millions, but we do ask for tangible financial support in this budget cycle. Join us in believing that it is possible to see every neighbor with enough food every day in Clarke County. May we never forget that what is essential cannot be negotiable. And speaking next is a member from Mount Olive.
Thank you, Ms. Barger. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, I'm Elder Grant from Mount Olive. We've been partnering with the food bank for more than 20 years. I've been personally involved for the last 14 years, and we have distributed more than 1 million pounds of food through the food bank for over the last 5 years. And we have noticed a marked difference within the community. A lot of people have come to me personally and have expressed their appreciation for what we're doing. We're able to get a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables on the table of people. Over the last 2 months, I've noticed that there's been a decrease in the amount of food that the food bank has been able to provide us. And my understanding is as a result that you're getting less things in. And it's impacting the people. You know, a lady came to me a week ago and she said to me, she said, you know, before you guys started doing this distribution, we used to dumpster dive. And that literally broke my heart. We call her Mama. You know, she's been there every week. She comes with her son. She's handicapped and she's hard for her to move around. But every week she has been there for food. And we've been able to provide it. Now, my concern now is with the decrease in the amount of food that we are receiving, you know, I realize it's going to have a tremendous impact on the community. So my request to you all is whatever you can do to assist the food bank to allow them to be able to provide more food to these people will be a great help to this community. We have distributed we've distributed food to more than 10,000 people per month. That's the amount of people that we are feeding based on the estimate that we have been doing. Sometimes it's more, sometimes a little bit less. But you can imagine, 1 million pounds of food is quite a bit of food. And, you know, we partner with other groups to make sure the food are getting on people's table. So, you know, the food is really getting out there. So whatever you guys can do to help, please do it. And in closing, you know, I'm guided, as a church, we're guided by the principle found in Matthew 25:40, you know, where Jesus was talking. He said, you know, what you did for the least of these, you did it unto me. When I was hungry, you feed me. That's what he said to one group. To the next group, he said, when I was hungry, you didn't feed me. So it is important for this city and all cities to work on making the food possible for everybody to eat. And we don't discriminate. We take care of everybody. Our people from all walks of life comes there. We love everybody, and we provide whatever resources we can for them. We even help with utilities as a church. So, you know, it's about impacting the community and sharing God's love with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Tim Johnson, and I'm a retiree. I'm not speaking for anybody except myself. I reside in Normaltown. 6 years ago, with a large year-end budget surplus, this commission unanimously voted to set aside $4 million to fund initiatives to address poverty. The prosperity package was discussed over a period of many months, including work sessions and retreats, and initially funded two things: 2 grant writer positions for the local government and the Neighborhood Leaders Program. Neighborhood leaders work in high poverty neighborhoods in each of 16 prosperity zones. It was recognized that it would take some time to build trust and begin to reach its potential. Starting it and then shutting it down after the set-aside funds ran out would be counterproductive and would actually increase community distrust. In response to this concern, commissioners committed to sustain the program with general revenue funds as an ongoing partnership with mayor and commission, the Unified Government staff, and the collaborative Family Connection communities and schools. And I want to say thank you to the commissioners and the mayor for fulfilling your commitment and sustaining the program. Their work to enroll eligible residents in SNAP literally brings millions of dollars a year to Athens, many times what the program costs, just from that one area of their work. And there's so many others: Medicaid enrollment, Medicare, child care subsidies, Head Start, early Head Start, utility assistance, job training, assistance in finding and applying for jobs, community building at the neighborhood level, hundreds of thousands of diapers from the diaper bank distributed, the empty stocking fund, engagement with the Athens Wellbeing Project, the Earned Income Tax Credit, VITA Income Tax Assistance Program, violence prevention, mental health trainings, physical health programs, and many, many others. There was one early, unanticipated outcome: the community response to the pandemic. The Neighborhood Leaders Program went to scale the 1st of March in 2020. 2 weeks later, we were in a state of emergency. The newly hired neighborhood leaders became key leaders in the community response. Many residents initially laughed off the pandemic. There were COVID parties in many neighborhoods. We can speculate how they would have reacted if the police or other government officials had shown up to intervene. But when neighborhood leaders, reflective of those communities, spoke with them, they listened. Neighborhood leaders partnered with the ACC government, public health, schools, and others to connect their initiatives responding to the pandemic to people who needed them, ranging from food distributions, tens of thousands of face masks distributed, immunizations, and more.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable commissioners. My name is Alice Kinman. I live at 457 Sunset Drive, also in Normaltown. My purpose tonight is to ask you to adopt a budget for fiscal year 2026 that includes just over $1 million to fund the Neighborhood Leaders Program. I've served on the board of Family Connection Communities and Schools for around 10 years, and before that, I served for 8 years on this body, on the Athens-Clarke County Commission. Based on that experience, I'd like to share just a few of my thoughts about the Neighborhood Leaders Program and why I think Athens-Clarke County should fund it. When I first ran for the commission, it's now over 20 years ago, I often heard the complaint that Athens has a lot of nonprofits, but nobody knows what anybody else is doing. What we lacked was a central clearinghouse that could connect residents to resources. And for the past 2 decades, this commission has put tremendous effort into solving that problem. We started out in the early aughts with Partners for Prosperous Athens. That sort of evolved into One Athens, which is now the Athens Area Community Foundation. More recently, this body elected to leverage its strategic planning process to jumpstart Envision Athens, which still exists today. Basically, we've always sought partnerships to address our community's needs. Today, the Neighborhood Leader Program has essentially emerged as the entity that we've been looking for, that we've been seeking to build. They are the central clearinghouse that connects residents to resources. They're guided by priorities set by the Mayor and Commission, and they've become a network of trained resource brokers working in all 16 of our elementary school zones. They connect hundreds, if not thousands, of Athens residents to a host of service providers. Through the neighborhood leaders, every resident of Athens has a direct line to every service and program available to them. It's clear that the Mayor and Commission value this role. It's written directly into the strategic plan that's at the very beginning of this budget that I'm asking you to adopt. This plan has 6 goals, which you all defined, the second of which is devoted to, and I'm quoting here, identifying and closing gaps in partnership with the community. Of the 5 strategies that you listed to achieve this goal, the neighborhood leaders are named explicitly in one of them. They directly support 3 of the 5, and they indirectly support the other 2. So they are reflected in the values that drive the very budget that you're discussing tonight. As a taxpayer, I would say that's a lot of bang for the buck for a $1 million line item and a $200 million budget. I just want to add one more memory from the Wayback Machine when I was running for commissioner, the days when I was knocking on doors and throughout my district. A very wise person told me to look for the unofficial mayors. Those are the people that live in every neighborhood, on every block. They go to the schools, they shop in the stores. They're the people that other people look to hold the community together. Get to know those people, and you get to know the neighborhood. That's who the neighborhood leaders are. They are the unofficial mayors. In supporting them, I really feel that you're empowering your own constituents in the process of investing in this program. I'm out of time. Thank you very much
Thank you,
for
Ms.
all that you
Kinman.
do. I appreciate it.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Carl Blunt. I live at 229 Henderson Avenue, and given that the previous two people have covered everything I intended to say, and these nights are very long for y'all, I will be short. I am treasurer of Family Connections, Communities, and Schools. The SNAP benefits alone that we can show in the last set of data we have that our neighborhood leaders have brought in are $9 million. When someone comes to us, a lot of times they don't even know what to ask for. They just need help. Things like SNAPs, things like WIC, things like the TAMP benefit. Especially think about also the access we direct them towards when it comes to Peach Care and the Affordable Care Act. As opposed to someone going into the emergency room and having to be treated for something that might have been handled through a general practitioner, and then not being able to pay that bill, and St. Mary's and Athens Regional having to eat that, we can set them up or get them pointed in the direction of getting health care to where that's something that's covered and they have the proper medical care they need. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Good evening.
Suzanne Warrenfelts, 175 Dunwoody Drive. So as you discuss the budget today and in the future, I would ask that you do not touch the Community Energy Fund or the 100% Clean Energy Resolution and its associated activities. The Community Energy Fund and the 100% resolution are not special interests that are draining money from the general fund. So Athens spends about $6 million a year on energy costs. I got that number from Mike Wharton, who's the sustainability officer. And anyway, that's a lot of money, and it's just going to go up as consumption increases and the rates increase. Rates have increased about 20% in the most recent years. So our Community Energy Fund is our best tool for reducing energy costs and saving our city money. So we charge the utilities, Georgia Power mainly, a fee to do business in our area. And then we put that money into the Community Energy Fund and earmark it for projects that reduce energy consumption and transition us to cheaper, clean energy, both of which are saving our city money. And some of that money goes to the Housing Authority to accomplish other municipal goals, such as affordable housing. So I'll say it again, the Community Energy Fund is not a special interest. It's a carefully constructed tool that reduces costs, saves money, and helps us achieve municipal goals such as affordable housing.
Thanks, Ms. Warrenfeld. Good evening.
Good evening. Mary Songster, 1450 West Hancock Avenue. I want to emphasize how important the Community Energy Fund is and point out that it is a bridge to a stable budget right now and in the future. I run a small construction company with my husband, Michael, and energy performance and cost are part of the consideration for materials and design from the beginning of any project. New construction and remodels. All of our projects include solar options. It is best building practices. As our community grows, so will our energy needs. Adding solar arrays allows for expanding energy use without increasing energy cost. I don't go to the courthouse very often, but I'm glad it is there, and I want it to be as efficient and effective as it possibly can be. I don't know how much it costs to heat and cool the courthouse, but I bet it's not cheap. If there was a solar array on the courthouse, any avoided energy cost would be left in the general fund, and that money could be used for other things the government needs to do. It could go to the DA's office and help you run things. I don't know how much it costs to heat and cool the library, a place I do spend time, but I know that from day one of parking lot solar being installed, they're spending less money on energy, and maybe those savings could be redirected to buy more books or pay librarians more. I'd be happy if you spent less of my tax dollars to heat and cool office spaces and public buildings, and more of it on community needs and services. On a personal note, I am also a landlord, and having solar on our rental properties makes the energy cost so low that we can fold utilities into rent. On our first rental, we did not put in solar right away, and the tenants paid the electric bill. Often it was over $200, and that was 15 years ago. We put a small array on the roof, and the cost on average dropped to less than $50 a month. Stabilizing the energy costs made it a more attractive rental and took pressure off the need to constantly increase rent. Moving forward, we added solar to all of our rental properties. Our office on Barber Street, which also serves as a shop space and storage for the business, has an apartment above. And even though we pay a higher rate for commercial space, the energy costs are so low, we don't charge the tenant for utilities. And we are able to have a very competitive rent rate, which is good because our renter works at a downtown business and they can afford to live in town and walk to work. A headline in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution yesterday said, "Georgia Power strikes deal to keep rates steady, but may not be for long." The Community Energy Fund gives Athens the upper hand on any energy deal, right now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Songster. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Delmira Jennings, and I live in the Shoal Creek Farms subdivision neighborhood. I'm fortunate enough to have solar power and backup batteries in my home, which has provided my husband and I an opportunity to save money on our electric bill, have a positive impact on the environment, and to also create some energy independence from Georgia Power. Georgia Power continues to use fossil fuels that negatively impact the environment. With so many programs being denied funds to continue their clean energy efforts, I hope and pray that Athens does not take away funds from the Community Energy Fund. I've found that solar power with a battery system has provided resiliency when there are power outages and also a cost savings. But the Athens ACC government has also seen savings in the solar-owned project and CEF effort. Systems that have been installed for transportation and public works, Cedar Creek, fire stations, and family protection, etc., as of April of 2025 has seen an estimated savings of roughly $446,000, with a projected lifetime savings of over $2.7 million. Supporting clean energy efforts like solar power isn't just good for our wallets. It's great for the environment and the planet overall. As technology continues to improve and renewable energy becomes more accessible, we should continue to invest in efforts that will make a positive impact on the city finances, the residents, the planet, and also move forward with energy independence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Good evening.
Hello, my name is Sally Coonan. I live at 760 Rambling Road. When we think about clean energy, we usually talk about the environmental and the health benefits, both of which are critically important. But just as important, and especially relevant tonight, are the financial benefits of clean energy. Here's a striking statistic for you. The percentage of income that Athenians spend on energy not only exceeds the state average, but is more than double what the average American pays. In some of our lowest income neighborhoods, residents are spending nearly 30% of their income on energy. To make matters worse, in just the past 2 years, the average Georgia Power customer has seen a $43 increase on their monthly bill. And in just a few weeks, the Public Service Commission's Integrated Resource Plan will be voted on, a plan that includes funding for massive infrastructure build-out. And while this plan advertises a freeze on energy rates for the next 3 years, as you've heard, experts are warning us that consumers will, in fact, likely end up shouldering the heavy costs through other charges. So, given the already heavy energy burden that many Athenians already face, eliminating our community energy fund, especially at this time, would be a big mistake. As we just heard from the previous speaker, thanks to the foresight of the commission, we have already in place, already at work, a real alternative to these rising prices. Our Community Energy Fund, a fund that brings real benefits to our community. So I urge you, as you work through the budget, please protect the Community Energy Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coonan. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Perfect. I'm Olivia. I'm the founder and CEO of a local solar company called Infinite Energy Advisors. I'm here to urge you to preserve the Community Energy Fund and the Clean Energy Resolution. Outside of business, I have personal ties to this community. My mom is a graduate of UGA Law, and I've been best friends with the granddaughter of the late Robert Stevens of Lord and Stevens Funeral Homes since I was 3 years old. I consider Athens as part of my extended family. Let me be clear, cutting solar funding is not a savings, it's a loss. Solar is no longer a niche investment. It's a proven economic engine. The solar projects to date that Athens has completed has unlocked unprecedented savings on power bill expenditures on community buildings, savings that the community can reinvest back into itself. In fact, for every dollar of solar investment, a minimum of $1.33 is returned. With these solar investments, you're protecting your environment and multiplying your money. According to Georgia Power's own 2022 IRP filings, solar is the lowest cost new energy resource in our state. Last year, solar added more electric generation to our grid than any other energy source combined. Beyond households, this creates long-term savings for the local grid. Distributed solar lowers peak demand pressure, which reduces long-term infrastructure and generation costs, which would otherwise fall on Athens-Clarke County taxpayers. Let's talk jobs. I run the Solar Knowledge Institute, which is Georgia's first of its kind DOL-certified solar apprenticeship program. Our graduates are earning competitive wages without college debt and are working right here locally in Georgia. Clean energy jobs are growing in Georgia at a rate of 5 times the state's overall job growth. Athens has a real opportunity to build a workforce that attracts clean energy employers like myself. If you cut solar funding, you cut the pipeline to those jobs. And let's not forget public health. Studies from Georgia Tech, which is my alma mater, shows that outdated appliances and inefficient energy systems emit harmful pollutants, which are linked to cognitive issues in children, asthma, long-term health care costs, and things of the sort. Investing in clean energy isn't just smart. It saves money on emergency care, missed workdays, and special educational interventions. In short, solar makes Athens money. It brings federal dollars, it saves households and government buildings on energy bills, and it reduces public health costs, creates jobs, and stabilizes your long-term municipal budget. It creates a powerful, sustainable, circular economy. If you're looking for places to cut, look away from solar. Cutting clean energy funding would not just be short-sighted, but it would be fiscally irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia, let me get your last name for the record.
Amyette, Amyette.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Cobb, and I've been a resident of the Athens area for over 40 years. I'm here as a member of Citizens Climate Lobby and on behalf of our environmental ministry at Covenant Presbyterian Church on Gaines School Road. I urge you not to use our Community Energy Fund for more general purposes. Our city is a distinguished leader in Georgia because it is one of 4 cities in Georgia which is committed to a clean energy resolution. Thanks to the leaders of CCL, we recently had a study group about the Athens Clean and Renewable Energy Plan, and I was so proud to know that our city has embraced an ambitious plan of making clean energy a priority, and that an integral part of this plan is to focus on helping low-income residents who are most susceptible to the effects of climate change. I quote from the executive summary of the Clean and Renewable Energy Plan. Although climate change scenarios resulting from greenhouse gas emissions threaten public safety and quality of life for Athens residents, traditionally marginalized communities are most at risk for experiencing the negative economic and social consequences of climate change. This plan aims to rectify racial and economic disparity through a clean energy framework. I understand well, having run a small business for 29 years, that budget constraints can cause us to rethink priorities, but I urge you that this must be a priority. This plan benefits all Athenians now by lowering energy costs and especially lower and middle income residents. Also, we must think ahead so that we will have a healthy, beautiful, and safe place for our children and future generations to live. To do this, we need clean energy. And now that federal funding is frozen and we are very unsure of its future, it is even more important that we keep the Community Energy Fund to support the Clean Energy Plan. Again, I emphasize that a large focus of this plan is on helping low and middle income residents lower their energy costs by improving energy efficiency and using clean energy, which is cheaper, so that they spend less money on energy costs and can spend more money on essentials for their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gail Chimo. I live at 245 Millstone Circle, and I'm here to talk about the Energy Fund. I am a mother, a grandmother, and also a great-grandmother, and I'm very concerned about their future and future generations. Their health, their financial stability, and the impact of extreme weather events. Funding clean, renewable energy is a way to mitigate these impacts. You see what happened in Asheville with Hurricane Helene and recent hurricanes in Florida, and just last week, tornadoes in Kentucky and Missouri. My son lives in Kentucky and has experienced extreme weather to the point where his family and him spent hours in their shelter to stay safe on 2 occasions. Thank goodness that there wasn't much damage. But the important thing, one of the important things, is that he was able to stay in contact with me. Georgia feels kind of like a safe place from these weather events, but I think we might have a false perception. Look at Augusta, just up the road with Hurricane Helene. Georgia is not immune from the increase in these extreme weather events. Rising temperatures make it a risk for people who work in the heat. 22% of Georgians work outside. Floods and droughts can impact our food supply, as well as these intense storms. We will be hit with high costs of these weather events sooner rather than later. Renewable energy is cleaner and cheaper, as many people have already mentioned. It lowers the output of the greenhouse gas emissions. It is more cost-effective for consumers, and it can help in disasters with utilizing solar power during power outages. Having affordable solar power for churches, community centers, and individual households can assist the community in recovery by providing hot showers, phone charging, and kitchens to cook in. I installed solar panels on my house and a backup battery. Not only has my electricity bill gone down, the last 3 months it's only been between $10 and $15. But I must say, I haven't been using my air conditioner up until just recently. But I have peace of mind also that in a power outage, I will be able to reach my kids will be able to reach me, I can reach emergency personnel, and I can open my home to those that are in need, that are out of power. The cost of electricity is increasing. Georgia Power has doubled down on funding fossil fuels. Clean and renewable energy is more cost-effective, again.
Thank you, Ms. Chimo.
Okay, and one thing, it's just the right thing to do for Athens and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
I brought in some information. I want each commissioner to have a copy of it along with the mayor. I have a proposal for a new community. This proposal has been shown on because of being a manufactured home. This proposal shows, instead of using a percentage, it shows the dollar amount, how people are saving themselves, and how people would control their spending. With this proposal, we are talking about 100 brand new manufactured homes. for low-income people. So they will have a budget chart, a schooling, and there will be a group around to make sure everything is run right. With this proposal, I also want to give acknowledge to a group of people who helped me with the proposal. The first one is Flamingo Mobile Homes. The second one is a longtime mason named Mr. Frank Smith. And the third one is Palmer Home Furniture of Commerce. Now, with this proposal, I propose that we look very diligent at it. It can work because it never have been done before, because I'm doing it not to make money, but to help people to better themselves. This is what it reads. I'm proposing a new community development named The Whole Village. Under the Fair Housing Act and state, federal, and city laws protecting low-income people, senior citizens, and the disabled and homeless who are born, birthed here in Athens-Clarke County as a citizen and earned citizenship whose income is below Athens-Clarke County mayor and commissioner laws and their personal governing bodies' ways of living. ACC works like a clock, on time or out of time, repeating itself every movement. Low-income renters who are helped by the joint venture of ACC and their bills at will investors or contractor apartment housing are given their own 30%, which is a 30-year contract. After 30 years, renters have to pay more or get out of their house. But with this proposal, you don't have to deal with that. Each renter is responsible for their own home. Each renter will pay back the money that we are asking Clarke County to set up with to maintain our home. Each member will go to a planning, a teaching, a counselor, or whatever it takes for them to maintain their homes. And this proposal shows the dollar amount, starting at $400 a month. Unheard of, right? To own your own house. All you need to make $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, you'll be able to pay for all your needs in your home under your budget. That's all we ask for, a helping hand.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dari Kalantari, and I live at 120 Winter Circle. I'm here tonight to urge you to ensure this upcoming budget funds the Addressing Racial Inequities resolution that you passed in April, specifically in the areas of housing, workforce development, and youth safety. I've lived in Athens for 13 years, and I'm the person today because of the support of this community. This is a wonderful place to call home, but with that comes a shared responsibility. It's on all of us to confront historical injustices and to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to succeed and to live a safe and fulfilling life here. This resolution is more than words on paper. It's a real opportunity to begin repairing generations of disinvestment and systematic harm and to show through action what our community truly values. Athens is strongest when we invest in those who have historically been underserved. You have the power to turn this resolution into meaningful change by making sure these priorities are fully reflected in the upcoming budget. While Athens has made important strides, sustained commitment and systematic change are essential to achieving true racial equity. Funding these areas isn't just good policy, it's a statement of who we are and who we strive to be as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dara. Good evening.
Good evening, Dylan Woolsey, 505 Riverbend Parkway. I'm also speaking on the resolution passed in April to address minority inequities. The three things that we're mainly focused on in terms of actions to be done in terms of money were housing, economic and workforce development, as well as youth safety. However, looking through the current budget, it does not look like money is currently allocated, or there is not an additional amount of money put aside for addressing these issues. Because if we actually want to address these issues, we need to actually put money aside to do that. And one way to raise money is, there's many ways to raise money. We can change fees, we can cut various parts of the budget, or raising millage rates as well. And I want to stick into my personal wheelhouse of a little bit of knowing is housing. I've spoken about this issue a lot. I want to quote something that the Mayor and Commission has accepted from the Affordable Housing Investment Strategy I think it was in this last fall. To quote, "The county cannot continue to rely on one-time sources and must allocate local recurring discretionary funding to a local housing fund to support the development and preservation of affordable homes." So I think since we have accepted this by a vote of the Mayor Commission, and we are trying to put forward more affordable housing, especially to address minority inequities, we need to provide a continuous amount of funding to this local housing fund that we started last year to actually be able to have a trust that local investors and local developers can rely on or can be in partnership of a recurring amount going into this housing fund that we can use to develop. As well, just this morning, actually, I watched the Urban 3 presentation that was given, which noted that to increase our tax revenue most efficiently in this county, the best way to do that is to promote the construction and taxing of mixed-use, high-density construction and buildings. The affordable housing fund, which can leverage our public funding with private cooperation and support, can help drive these investments. And once these buildings are built and they are taxed, we can then recoup this money and invest it into more social services, because that is what the government is for. It is for providing the less fortunate and the less well-off with the resources of all. So I please and humbly request that you really, really look into this budget and look what funds can be moved around, what things can be increased or decreased, and make sure that money is put aside for affordable housing, for economic development, and youth development services, and ensure that we are actually building a sustainable economic future for all Athenians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woolsey. Good evening.
Good evening. Michael McClendon, 201-9 Hamilton Road. I'm not here to ask you for any money, so I'll say that right off the start. The current budget you have in front of you continues the pattern of fiscal irresponsibility that has now become ingrained in how ACC does business. In the past few years, the commission has over $15 million of irresponsible spending that could have been reprioritized to fund the ever-increasing backlog of key operational and capital projects and maintenance that is a direct result of prior poor decisions. This year, I will again send you a list of projects which will likely be at this point in excess of $20 million, cuts that you could make to free up dollars to fund critical needs, not nice-to-have projects. But for tonight, I just want to address three quick examples. On your agenda for the following meeting is a requirement to fund long overdue maintenance on the College Avenue parking deck. I emphasize the word long overdue because when you read the narrative, it's clear that that can has been kicked down the road for years. And now it's kind of almost at a crisis stage, and you're being asked to come in at the 12th hour to take money and zero out essentially the life cycle fund to support that, as well as use contingency funds to support that. But we don't really know what the total requirement is to make the College Avenue parking deck whole. Then there's a question of the courthouse. You've been told for years that the courthouse needed maintenance on the elevators. And now we have no operational elevators in the courthouse. I just found out that it was either Friday or perhaps yesterday, an individual took a very severe fall down the stairwell at the courthouse and was injured. Why? Because the elevators were not in operation. Again, an indication you haven't been funding requirements. The last thing that I'm going to say is that you've been funding an awful lot of nonprofit organizations, but all of you've said you don't know what they do, you don't have any benefit, we don't have any performance measures. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is zero out funding this year for all nonprofit organizations and commit to doing an independent operational and financial audit of all the nonprofits that you fund so we know and understand where our money is going.
Thank you, Mr. McClendon. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Mocha Jasmine Johnson. All right, good evening again, Athens-Clarke County Mayor and Commission. I'm here to remind you of the commitment that this body made when you passed a resolution to address racial equity in Athens-Clarke County. That resolution was a promise to act to invest and to do the hard work of dismantling systemic barriers in housing, economic development, youth engagement, and community inclusion. As you discuss the 2026 budget and Mayor's recommendation, we urge you to honor that promise by ensuring adequate funding is allotted to support targeted equity initiatives. That includes fulfilling your longstanding commitment to the youth and community enrichment facilities. Let us not forget projects funded through SPLOST that remain unfulfilled. SPLOST 2011 Project 22 allocated $3 million for a youth and community enrichment facility. SPLOST 2022 Project number 23 allotted $4 million for East Athens youth focused development. So I ask, are these projects somewhere in the current budget or the budget that has been recommended? Mayor and Commission, I call on you to fully recommit to the equity goals outlined in the resolution and within FY26 budget by establishing a task force to ensure that funding will be available for the following: housing security, increasing funding for affordable housing development, preservation in high poverty neighborhoods, protect our residents from displacement through equitable zoning policies. Number 2, economic development. Invest in the 2023 disparity study recommendations to foster inclusion in the government, contracting, and ensuring Black and minority-owned businesses have access to procurement opportunities and more. Number 3, youth development and safety. Increase investments in after-school program, youth employment opportunities, sports, and accessible recreational spaces, especially in underserved communities. In addition, remember to allocate funds for Kyron Zarko Day, recognized as June 18th, a day committed to honoring Baby Dro and all the lives cut short due to gang and gun violence. Number 4, oversight and community inclusion. Ensure funding is in place for the People and Belonging Department, the Public Safety Civilian Oversight Board, the Human Relations Commission, so that they can perform on a higher scale and successfully engage with this community. Finally, as you know, there's been deaths recently in Athens-Clarke County Jail. Many of those people that are incarcerated, it is a thread with mental illness and also dealing with homelessness. So I urge the Mayor and Commission to allocate more of our public funds towards social services, not surveillance. Let's invest in community-based mental health services and solutions that address the root of the problem, reduce harm, and save taxpayers' dollars. Let this budget show that racial equity and community well-being are not just symbolic, performative in Athens, but genuine priorities.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Reverend Dr. Pippin Whitaker. I am the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens, and I live off Timothy Road. I last spoke with you about the resolution that Mocha was just referencing about disparities in housing, economic opportunity, and youth development. And when I was there, and many people among the commission and many speakers present were worried that it would just be another nice words where we say our values, but they don't turn into action. It doesn't turn into money. And so here I am, because I said I would show up to keep talking about this to help you in your work for our community. So I've been looking at the budget. Pardon me for not having had a chance to read all of it. It is lengthy. I'd love to have more opportunities to engage with the commission on that. Maybe I'll give Mr. Culpepper a call in my district and talk about it beforehand next time. But I have noticed some things that I'd like to ask about, and these may be questions that you can answer on your own. I certainly hope so. I'm deeply concerned about the people languishing in jail waiting for mental health evaluations. And 600 plus days, the gentleman who died, and others have waited longer. This is a public moral
charge that we have to care for people when they are in the public charge. If someone is in jail, it is because we have made the decision that their autonomy is not worth the risk to the public good or their own well-being. And so we take them into the public charge. When we do that, we have a moral obligation to provide for their well-being. People languish because they're waiting for hospital beds, they're waiting for inpatient mental health care beds. That does not absolve us of the responsibility to care for their mental well-being. So what is happening? Why are they not having their mental health needs met while they're in our jails? The jail doesn't have the resources to do it, and they don't have a choice. It's not like they can release them. There's a court order, there's keeping them there, and there's a reason for it. So I'd like to invite you to re-examine the budget and the priorities and see how they match our values and our moral obligations. I noticed a lot of increase in funding for policing. Increasing the size and magnitude of policing was nowhere in the fiscal year goals set out in this document. Nowhere in there did it say, we want Athens-Clarke County to have a larger policing infrastructure. That doesn't mean there aren't needs for it, clearly. There's a need for law enforcement. My brother was in law enforcement. He's recently retired. Lucky, he gets to retire young. But consider the size of the budget. $1.8 million increase in Athens Police Department, only $0.8 million increase in sheriffs, and a very small, relatively small increase in corrections.
Thank you, Reverend Whitaker. Appreciate it.
I wish I had paced myself better. Can I just say that I noticed there's a 33% increase in juvenile court, but I see a decimation in the provision of programs for youth in our county. I hope we can remedy that.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Michael Smith. Before I forget, 2015, the community was here talking about student housing, luxury student housing downtown. And Mayor, you said, well, the expensive apartments downtown are going to be affordable 30 years from now when you were a commissioner. I would like to know how has that changed? That's something to think about. It's related to my comments, okay? On the clean energy people, it's very important to keep all clean energy funding, not only for the unified government, for, as they were mentioning, to the community. There's a prepay program. I think 1,000 or 1,500 households participated, at least on a quarterly basis. They pay 25 to 50% more for their electricity than everyone else. No one has done anything about it. It's going to take work, and so we need to focus in on what's real, not what we wish is real. Commissioner Taylor, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Thornton have been taking a lot of heat in the community, a lot of heat for trying to protect families. Poverty rate. If you're a single income household, the poverty rate is nearly double what double income households are. That's just a fact. It's a total 100% fact. If you're a non-nuclear family with a disabled person or a felon in your household, your poverty rates for your community in this city can be triple of what we report. We can go home tomorrow, today, and try to ignore it. We have to stop. We need to engage people, leaders in the community that can communicate with the community and not forget all the real facts, which is everyone's hurting very badly. So everyone, when I say everyone, half of the community. So AADM and lots of other nonprofits need funding, and more so today, because tomorrow the reality is going to be the same, not what we wish the reality is. So please help the community by letting others help the community.
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much.
Smith. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Luther Atwater. I'm at 112 Tonneberry Drive. I'd like to speak this morning on the $37,323 that the commission chose not to fund the library with. But first of all, I want to thank you for the funding that you did provide for the Athens-Clarke County Library. In addition to the presentation that the library members have already made to you, there's one figure that you do not have, and that is between May 1st of last year and April 30th of this year, items circulated at the Athens-Clarke County Libraries totaled $7,416,000. And that includes, of course, Lay Park, Aaron Hurd, Winterville, Pine Woods, and of course the library on Baxter Street. This included everything that was physically checked out, including hotspots, books, audiobooks, DVDs, the experience passes like the Zoo to Atlanta and the State Park Pass, as well as science kits and instruments. Chromebooks and lunch books are not included in that amount. Whenever you go to the library, if you ask for a receipt, you get one of these little receipts, and at the bottom it says you have saved, the last book I checked out was $28. So that's how they get that total. And some of you are probably already figured out what I figured out. After you check out a book the first time, it's actually a used book, but that's still a fantastic bargain. I do want to also say that does not include audiobooks and ebooks, and those are more expensive than books in print. I did a quick search for myself. I read or either listened to about 20 books during the past year. If you say $25 a book, that's $500. And there's at least 1,000 other people in Clarke County using these resources other than me. So that's $500,000 right there. Victor Hugo has said, there's nothing like a dream to create the future. Even when the library is closed, people are using the library 24/7 every day of the year. Even though it's closed, they're listening to books, they're reading materials. I would challenge you to just go on the library's website.
Thank you, Mr. Atwater.
Okay, athenslibrary.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Broderick Flanagan, P.O. Box 295, Athens, Georgia. Here to support some of the words that were spoken earlier, specifically by Dr. Reverend Pittman Whitaker and Mocha Jasmine Johnson. We need to move with a sense of urgency around some of the ideas that they were sharing. I was at court earlier with a young lady who was facing dispossessory. And thankfully, the judge ruled in her favor. And I'm not saying it was because I was there. But just to be there to witness that and like not even understand the magnitude that is happening at present. And I feel like we're not working with a sense of urgency to prevent those things when it's preventable. And you know, some of the things I'm talking about within the budget that can be done is like building capacity for certain departments like code enforcement. When Prosperity Capital Partners came and bought up all those properties and raised the rent overnight, there were some dilapidated properties happening, and when people reached out to code enforcement, that department was ill prepared to handle that volume. And so when you look through the budget, you need to like think about things like that. Also, in relation to economic development with like housing, we can't forget that housing affordability is related to a person's income. And so when we talk about these community benefits agreements, we'll hear the developers gripe and moan, but we need to continue to push that as an issue, create policy around it, and create supports within the government and fund it so that we can employ people locally. The young lady that works for the solar company or has the Solar Institute here was talking about it earlier. I've been on calls with her before. It's figuring out how can we get people of color involved in that industry so they can share in the prosperity that's happening on some of these major capital projects where we spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. Like what would it look like? What would our community look like if we were to employ people from Athens, from some of these distressed communities that show up in the Vision Athens report, the NSIM Network for Southern Economic Mobility report? What if we would employ these people to share in that prosperity? What would our community look like? We can't charity spend our way out of poverty. At some point, we have to put together a plan that's going to move people to the next level, that's going to create opportunities for people. And so I understand the sense of urgency, what people need right now, meeting people where they are, but we also need to look at the budget as a moral document that can get people to that next position of stability. And I'm looking forward to working with you on that. On the note of housing, we need to build a capacity of HUD so they can put out an application for the strike fund that we're building. I heard that some money's in that, but it's not accessible just yet. So what are we waiting for? We need to move with a sense of urgency on some of these ideas.
Thank you, Mr. Flanagan. Good evening.
Good evening. Cameron J. Harrelson, 130 Harbin Place, District 7. I'm never nervous when I watch from home on live in my sweatpants, but I'm nervous every time I come to the podium, so it's good to see you all in person. I want to start by acknowledging something that I know many of you might be feeling. It's one that I feel as well, and that might be frustration. I think that it's sometimes frustrating when we see the projects or the issues that we personally care about pushed to the side. These can be and have been in the past things like bike lanes, which I'm not against, by the way, sustainability. Sometimes people say, we just don't care about that right now. And I recently was listening to Governor Andy Beshear of the great state of Kentucky, and he said, it's not that people don't care, it's that they don't have the capacity to get there. When people are worried about transportation or how they're going to feed their family or housing instability or childcare gaps, they have no capacity to get beyond to the higher level issues. And so that's why I believe local investment in frontline, reputable nonprofits, two of which you heard from here tonight, of course, are not just optional, but essential. I know someone earlier questioned whether local government should fund nonprofits at all, and I, of anyone, many of you know this, believe in the power of transparency and fiscal responsibility. But the nonprofits that we're talking about here are vetted. They report their finances, both locally to their donor database and to the government. They meet performance metrics. They are audited, and in fact, they are more accountable to the public than businesses, and their reports are more detailed than the financial disclosure reports that all of you are required to report. But beyond the paperwork, they bring something that sometimes you and me just can't accomplish, and that's the direct connection to the populations in which they interact with and serve every single day. So I don't believe that supporting nonprofits is a detour from progress. I believe it is what makes progress possible. So as you look at the budget, I hope you'll do all the good you can to fund the nonprofits that you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrelson. All right. Before we close this segment of the evening, I do want to note the coming budget sessions. 2 days from today, on the 22nd, the commission will discuss the budget at Doherty Street at 5:30. There is no public input that evening, but there is public input on Tuesday, June 3rd on the budget. That's what the state terms the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, hearing number 1. Similarly, there will be discussion and public hearing and public input on Thursday, June 5th. And then the final opportunity for public input and budget passage will be Tuesday, June 10th. So you can see all those dates at ACCGov.com. All right, I'll entertain a motion from the body to adjourn this session.
So moved.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright And second from Commissioner Thornton. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, we'll move forward now to our agenda setting session. During our agenda setting session, we'll have public input on our consent agenda. We'll have public input individually on each of the planning zoning items, and then we'll have public input on old and new business in that order. I first want to ask members of the commission, would any commissioner like to remove an item from the consent agenda to discuss? Give you all a second to look at that. Those are items 1 through 9 in the agenda as prepared. All right, seeing none, I'll move to the public. Would any member of the public like to speak to any of those consent agenda items? Again, those are items 1 through 9 on the agenda. All right, we are going to move to our planning and zoning items. I'm going to push the chair back, and the screen is going to come down. So Bruce Lonnie, our planning director, is joining us now, and the way that the process unfolds for our planning and zoning items, Bruce will present, including a graphical presentation on each item. There will be the opportunity for public input, kind of in the 3-minute opportunity as described earlier, and then there will be commission discussion.
The name Bruce means brief.
Oh, my goodness.
Looked it up just now.
It also means brave.
Oh, yeah, now that's probably more important. You know who you're dealing with.
All right. Bruce has half a dozen items in front of us tonight, and the first is 581 South Harris Street.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move through these. We've got a handful of items that are coming to you from the Planning Commission meeting that was held on May 1st. The first one is a special use request for 581 South Harris Street. The request involves a special use in the commercial general zone to demolish an existing commercial restaurant and replace with a 29-space surface parking lot. The special use permit is for the proposed parking lot, not for the demolition. The demolition would not need the special use request, but the parking lot itself is a commercial parking lot, as a standalone use, does require special use approval. Associated with this is a variance to remove the 10-foot parking buffer requirement that is standard with surface parking requirements. To get you oriented to where we are, the subject property is outlined in red and black. The black arrow that you see there is on Harris Street. Some of you remember this maybe as the old Locos, some as the old Wishbones. It depends on how far back you go.
Ronnie B's.
Okay, and it sits behind, right. Future land use, Main Street business. That would not change with the request. Similarly, the zoning would not change. If approved, it would just get the triangle indicating the special use permit. So here are some photos of the site, the building as it looks today. And this is at the rear of that building, and you see surface parking there. To the left of the chain link fence is on the subject property. To the right of the chain link fence is another abutting property. That abutting property owner installed the chain link fence. The applicant did not. Here is the proposed site plan that would become binding upon adoption. In order to meet the dimensional requirements of 18-foot parking spaces and a 24-foot two-way drive aisle, double-loaded parking pretty much fills the full width of the lot as it exists today. And that is what, in the applicant's design, is predicating the need for waiver or variance of the 10-foot parking buffer that would otherwise be designed for. This is the parking structure that UGA is building just down the street. We're providing that for context since we are talking about a parking use. This map also shows in red all of the areas of surface parking or structured parking that exist in the immediate vicinity. The black arrow indicates the subject property, so you can kind of see the walking distance from that site to the available parking in the area. The current parking deck that I showed you a picture of that's being constructed is at the bottom of the screen. It's labeled as parking deck, but it's shown as a surface parking lot. Staff analysis on the special use permit, not the variance, but the special use permit, found that the request was incompatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan in that it doesn't, the plan does not incentivize alternative transport, infill, or supporting corridor development in the way the comprehensive plan anticipated. It's incompatible with future land use map and zoning map in that the special use is required for this use to be approved. It's not a by right use. It's incompatible with Main Street business future land use character. Noting that UGA is currently adding that 1,097 space new parking structure in addition to the parking that we showed you in that aerial view, and it does not satisfy the special use criteria. Staff analysis on the parking lot buffer found that none of the 5 criteria were met to justify, or the information presented was not enough to justify waiving that parking buffer standard. Planning Commission, after considerable discussion, found that the special use criteria and the associated variance primarily met those criteria when considered within the context of the subject property. And so they recommended approval. And that concludes the staff report.
All right. Is there any member of the public here to speak to this evening? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Patrick Perry, and I'm with 355 Deer Trigger Landing, Athens, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of the property owners tonight who are with us as well. We're here to request special use approval for this. The applicants initially, their local business owners initially purchased the property in 2022 from Locos Corporation. Locos is closed at the time, but there was another restaurant that was up and running. The applicants were intending on leasing the restaurant out for revenue, as is currently a restaurant there. Since that time, the restaurant since closed and the site is sitting vacant. When the previous property owners purchased the property, they weren't aware that they didn't have access to the off-site easement. When the business closed and moved out, the owners became aware that the parking agreement was with the prior tenant. The adjacent property owner, I saw, even installed a fence. The building is available for lease right now, but without parking, there's not any commercial interest. And honestly, it does not seem feasible that it can be leased without any parking. Other businesses in the Baxter struggle with sufficient parking and finding places for the customers. In lieu of watching unusable and unleasable building deteriorate, the owners decided their best course of action would demolish the building so that they could currently use the parking spaces that are on there. There's existing 13 spaces. They currently lease parking at their adjacent business, Jimbo's gas station, and the demand for parking is significant. To obtain all the proper permits for this to occur, the applicants reached out to the planning department for a building demolition so they could park on their parking. Various alternative uses were presented by the planning department, but ultimately the property owners decided that creating a commercial parking lot is the best use of their property at the present time. This will allow removal of a blighted building and generate income for the property owners. Nothing proposed will prevent future redevelopment or result in adverse impacts on the adjacent property owners. From a 10,000 square foot perspective, it really does not seem like a smart business plan to demolish an existing building that's for lease to spend money on build a new building in hopes a tenant will appear. In terms of the compatibility, this isn't an infill redevelopment. This is existing blighted property with a vacant building, and it's going to be redeveloped as a proposed proposal. It provides places for people to walk. When I was at UGA about 20 years ago, I didn't live in Athens. I had to commute to Athens out of town, so I assumed that people need places to park. That's a good parking. Unfortunately, the lot is narrow, and there's just no way to get double loaded parking on it. if we were to turn the parking, we'd only get 6 spaces. I showed on previous presentations, Planning Commission. 6 spaces cannot justify development of that site. South Harris Street does not have its substandards. There's no sidewalks on South Harris Street, so there's no way to walk to the property. We're providing sidewalks on our street, so we're on our section of the street, so we're bringing the street one space closer to connectivity. We're also providing tree canopy where it does not exist and providing stormwater where it does not exist.
Thank
In
you, Mr.
conclusion,
Perry. Appreciate it.
okay, yes, sir.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this item tonight?
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Rakesh Gosai. I 581 Harris Street. I am the owner. When we bought the property, we didn't know there was an encroachment issue on the property. We didn't know there was an easement on the property. There was an easement issue. We can't access the property. It's been sitting there, deteriorating, we can't, there are a lot of potential tenants, but there is no easement in the back of the property. We can't go back and clean the property. The logical thing we saw was a lot of demand in parking. We have parking in downtown, yes, but if you come to Millage, if you come to 5 Points, there is no family parking. If you go to Raising Cane's, you park next door. By the time you come back, you have a boot on your car, and the kids are crying because they want cash, $50, and we own the business in front. We don't own the property, the Jimbo's business. So we basically help the kids with their parking issues, with their tire issues. At this level, we dedicate ourselves to the kids. We thinking we're doing some kind of community service, helping those new kids and the old kids, And UGA is making 1,000 parking, yes. Football season, they are all kicked out. So everybody is parking on the street. They go to enjoy a football game. Sundays, they are off. Monday morning, they go to the Tate Center towards the dining hall for their classes. And Monday evening, they're crying because the cars have been towed, We have a lot of families, there are businesses next to us. They have parkings, yes, but they're not open for public. We just want to help the demographic. We just want to help the kids in the community. We want them to come. They can be relaxed. They can breathe. They can go to the classes. When they come back, their cars are still there. We want to help them. We want to. It's not an abandoned parking lot. We interact with the demographic. We interact with you guys when you come and park. We just want to help the community. We are not making any money. We are paying taxes on time. Yes, we are paying the property taxes. We are paying the mortgage. We are not making any money, and the building is not making any money, and it's just we need to help the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this project this evening?
Good evening. Chance Edwards, 511 East Spring Street. I've been working with Mr. Rakesh and his family for about a year now. They brought me in on a general contracting business, and we did a feasibility study on the property. When they did buy the property, they did have a tenant in the space, and parking wasn't an issue. It wasn't until the tenant moved out, like Mr. Rakesh said, and then the neighbor put the fence up, which basically made the property useless. And we tried to look at different options on what kind of building we could put on that space, what we could do to that building to even get us a driving lane to the back of the space. It's just not possible. So I would ask you guys to approve his petition to use the space as a parking lot. It's adjacent to another parking space. As far as the buffer goes, you really couldn't tell it too much in the picture because they didn't show the probably 200 to 300 parking space facility that's right next door. The buffer really, to me, is a non-existent issue because you're going to pave parking spot to a parking spot. And then on his building, and you couldn't see it in the photo, but there's like a 6-foot drop off as far as the buffer on the left goes. So your parking lot is basically going to go up to a retaining wall. And then, like Patrick said, the improvements that we're going to do to the parking lot with canopy cover, storm drain, water runoff, that type of thing, will basically improve that area better than what it is now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Is there anyone else here to speak to this project this evening? Good evening.
Hi, my name is Frankie Gosine, and this is my husband Rakesh Gosine, and we own the property at 581 South Harris Street. And we purchased the property, but now it's unusable and it's unrentable due to unseen circumstances. I could go into the details of everything that happened. We decided, and we talked about it for a long time, we decided that we wanted to make it into a parking lot. And I know in Athens, parking lot is kind of a bad word, but it's not really a bad word because that's what we want. That's our goal, to have a parking lot. So I just wanted to know if the mayor and the commissioners would consider letting us, or honoring this for us. And maybe in the near future, we could do something else with this property, but right now, nothing can be done to it. And we're just paying the rent, paying the mortgage, and we want to do something great in Athens. And I know that we can do it sooner or later. So if you would just give us a chance on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stein.
Thank you, thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak to this project this evening? All right, we'll come for a commission discussion. It's in District Chad.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. No, I won't take up too much time, but this is certainly an interesting predicament, unfortunate predicament for a lot of things. And I just have a few questions for Bruce. So if they were, if they wanted to tear the building down today, I think I heard you say correctly, that if they wanted to tear the building down today, they could. They just wouldn't be able to use it as a surface parking lot without this special use.
The special use is needed to establish the parking lot, but the demolition review, we'd go through that process and, yeah.
Just want to make sure that's clear, that they could, they could tear down the building. So, I've lived across the street, back in 1994, right as I got out of college, and would visit Locos quite often. And but times have gone by, and certainly I could see different things happening with this property, different things happening with the other piece of property. Perhaps, hopefully soon, maybe some sort of assemblage project would come to fruition. Hopefully soon, this would not remain a parking lot. Mr. Lonnie pointed out all the red parking spaces around there, but these folks don't have, that's not their parking spot. And certainly we know that with the new parking garages being built, that's being built for UGA purposes and for their clientele. So I'm inclined to say, yeah, let's move forward with the special use permit. I don't feel good about saying that, but certainly knowing the circumstances and knowing how property values are these days, I don't foresee it being a parking lot for very long.
Any other input? Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shame that we're in this spot where, a restaurant cannot sustain itself without a parking lot when it's located a block from high-rise student dorms housing literally thousands of students who could very easily walk to that establishment. And I understand that probably the conundrum here is that many of those students are freshmen who have cars who are not allowed to park on campus, thus the high demand for paid parking nearby. When I was in college, I went through 5 years of college without a car. Most of my friends didn't have cars. Things have changed, I guess. Even these students who do, they're right there on campus, can walk to all their classes and are probably taking Ubers downtown or walking, but they still have cars and they got to park their cars somewhere. That's the conundrum we face in a lot of our in-town communities. I see it in Hancock and East Athens. Cars clogging up streets, even if they're not used all the time. I don't feel good about this either, but that's the world we live in right now, and I really wish we could get to a place where these kids did not have to bring their cars to Athens.
Can I say something?
Well, we're just in commission discussion now. I think I saw Commissioner Davenport, and then I had Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, this another building, not historic, getting torn down. Another building, not historic, though, being torn down for parking. It's sad, but I do have some fond memories there too at that locals dart tournaments during college, and I too lived across the street. I will have to watch the planning commission meeting again, but it's a shame that this valuable piece of property be torn down for parking when most of these individuals are walking and are not using that car. But, you know, we do have home games where people do need, you know, coming to town, or visitors who want to utilize local shops and need parking. So there's a plus there, but I will be mulling over this over the next 2 weeks.
Commissioner Wright?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on how when students are, especially freshmen in those dorms, are mandatory dorm lifestyle includes meal plan. So that's also covering why they're not using the restaurants in that area. This is Loco's #1. So it does have historical
Actually,
value,
it's not.
Patrick. Let's just be clear. What?
A car sale.
That's right, the original. My bad. The #1 in the growing franchise, right? But anyway, okay, #2. But, so am I clear that when I used to go there and would park behind it, that's where that chain link fence was? Is that where this whole easement thing has been defined, to where we used to park back there, but then the property owners kept that from happening?
You're right. Yeah, the access, there was an access easement that was allowed to have cross-access through the other parking lot to get to the rear of the subject property, and that easement lapsed and was not renewed. So, and then the fence was installed.
Okay, all right. So, I hope that we can help out this situation and properly mourn Loco's #2.
I have a question here. With the applicant owning the property that's right there on Baxter Street, okay, I mean, this is educating me. Can you have 2 parcels and turn them into 1 parcel?
Combine them.
You can recombine
think
property,
you
but if you're thinking about
Yeah, but
access,
they
for
would go- access
purposes?
No, I just like down the line, could he be, and if he was doing that, they could change the whole configuration of a building. Let's say if you put the building, like it would be more, it might be more usable, the property, if it was combined into one, because it looks like all the surrounding properties are owned by the same person. But if this applicant was able to future develop something, it could go over the 2 properties.
You may want to ask the applicant that question. I'm not really sure of their
No,
ownership
I
of
don't
the
even
other.
actually, I mean, it shows it on the, I'm just looking on.
You're just asking conceptually, could you
Conceptually,
take 2
yeah.
commercial properties,
Yeah.
combine them, eliminate the lot line?
I'll
and
ask,
do
I was just looking at Q Public on that.
Ms. Carroll, we don't own Jimbo's. We rent the Jimbo's.
Okay, okay, got it, okay, right. But in theory, but you can answer that question anyway, you could take 2 parcels, put them together and make something else, right? Yes, okay, great. And then the parking and access would be different. Thank you.
All right, any more input on this one? All right, we're going to move on to Newton Bridge.
All right. The next request is a rezone request. Involves 4 parcels, 610, 720, 730, and 760 Newton Bridge Road. The request is to rezone from the existing I industrial zoning to RM1, which is a mixed-density residential category. There's also a future land use change suggested or requested with this from employment center and rural to mixed-density residential. The proposal for the property, when combined, would be 350 single-family units, 184 attached, 166 detached. You'll see in the layout here in a moment that they are mostly alley-served lots with garages, and that the applicant proposes to limit the project to fee-simple residences in single-family uses, not multifamily. When the application came in, there were some binding elements that they requested to go along with the plan. Those binding elements included things like the roadway alignment and the number of lots. But in the evaluation of what they submitted, there are a number of things that don't meet the development code. So to bind them to that would make it impossible to do the plan as submitted. So we're faced with that situation again where they were asking to bind and we were advising them that's probably not in your best interest since there are things that would have to change to accommodate what you want to do. But they are willing to bind themselves to the fee simple in the single family use. Getting you oriented here on Newton Bridge, the subject properties are on the east side of Newton Bridge, just in the proximity, actually, of a Holland Sports Complex. It's a difficult site, and you'll see this. It's crisscrossed by some fairly large utility easements. There's also considerable topography that has to be worked through, as well as some environmental areas that have to remain untouched. Current future land use is employment. The request is to go to mixed-density residential, that's indicated in the yellow. Zoning presently on the left is I, industrial, and the request is to go to RM1, as shown on the right. And here is the layout that was submitted, and the areas in red are those utility easements. The areas that you see in the lighter green are wetlands. And so you have a considerable amount of the 4 subject properties that just really aren't suitable for development. The easements can be crossed by transportation crossings. They have to be perpendicular, but no improvements can be made in those easements. So the lot layout that you see in the upper left corner are the attached units, and then to the east of that, more in the center, are the detached units. And then here's another view of the property showing the current disposition of it. Staff analysis found that this is partially compatible with the 2023 comp plan. This does offer the opportunity to add fee-simple housing and opportunity for connectivity. This is in the vicinity of greenway facilities as well as the Holland Sports Complex. This puts an increased housing type into the market, particularly in this area. And there is a roundabout anticipated that would help facilitate traffic movement, not just for this project, but for Newton Bridge Road. Compatible with future land use map and the zoning map in staff's analysis. But as I noted, there were some corrections that would need to make to comply with code. And so that's where staff's recommendation is to not bind the plan as submitted, but to bind the proposed use. Planning Commission, continuing on with staff analysis, the subject parcels really aren't suitable for industrial development. This area is the area that was set aside historically in Athens for future industrial development in the early part of the 20th century. And it's largely wet and steep, and until recently didn't have sanitary sewer service, but it does now. The residential use is more appropriate, considering Holland Sports Complex and the other residential development that is in the area and that's already been approved by this body recently, just to the north, as well as the general time redevelopment that's anticipated to the south. It is worth noting that the residential development will use more of the available sewer capacity than what was anticipated with the industrial uses for the area, but Public Utilities has noted that there is adequate capacity for the use at the density shown. Planning Commission recommendation is approval of the future land use change request. They also recommend approval of the rezone request with the following conditions. 1, that only fee-simple single-family attached and single-family detached uses be allowed, which is what the applicant has proposed. 2, that the applicant work with the Leisure Services Department to set aside enough land for a greenway connection and build a multi-use path, as defined by Leisure Services Department and Transportation and Public Works Department. This would be in place of one of the public sidewalks through the project to connect to the Greenway and also to the intersection at Vincent Drive and Newton Bridge Road. This was seen as a key connecting point for those facilities in that area. The required public sidewalk along Newton Bridge would be constructed as a multi-use path. This is something we're hearing more, and it does align with some of the Greenway Network Plan and Athens in Motion Plan expectations for the area. And fourth, the applicant would follow the recommendation of their traffic impact study prepared by KCI to construct a single-lane roundabout, and this has been looked at with Transportation and Public Works staff. They are interested in this and have standards and metrics that would need to be followed for that. But their recommendation, Planning Commission recommendation, is for approval with those conditions.
All right, is there any member of the public who'd like to speak to this submission? All right, we'll come for commission discussion. Commissioner Thornton, this is in your district.
Yeah. I like it right now. I wish the applicant was here just to add a little, I wish the applicant was here. But I do have one question, and I just saw it. And it was about, I guess it was something about Highland Park and Vincent Drive you mentioned about, didn't you mention something about Highland Park?
The roundabout.
The roundabout? Is that what you were?
I just remember you saying, because my question is going to be totally different from that, but I want to make sure I'm in the same area. Because I do remember we went back and forth about, with D.L. Horton's development.
Further north.
And that got just totally just blown out of proportion, in my opinion. And so I want to know why this project seems to be a lot simpler than what we went through with, and I'm also thinking about the sewer issues back then. So why is this project, to me, seems like a good project, but I also thought the D.L. Horton was a good project. So what made this easier than the D.L. Horton project?
I'll say this, as it relates to the roundabout, this development is immediately adjacent to that intersection, whereas the D.L. Horton project was not.
Okay.
And so that was something that was being talked about that was further away and not immediately adjacent to the subject property, and that was problematic. What is helpful here is this is in a different drainage basin for the sanitary sewer, so we're not fighting topography to provide service here.
And that was, I guess that was my concern about so this is a different basin.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Right now, I feel good about it. I'll do some calling you before we make that final vote. How about that? You still feeling brave?
So far.
Okay.
Got Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Link.
How many houses did you say? 210?
I think, let's just make sure I get the number correct. So 350 total,
350, okay.
and 184 of those attached and the balance detached, the 166.
Gotcha. And then the staff's approval with conditions, are those the same ones that the Planning Commission?
That's correct.
It's all the same?
Those four.
And I do hope that this does happen, because I believe if this comes up out of the ground, that's School C is going to have to happen, which is on the other end of Vincent Drive. It could be the tipping point. We'll get the school district to spend their money one way or the other, maybe.
You think about this and the project that Commissioner Thornton mentioned in tandem.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
quite a few new rooftops.
Because they do watch it. They watch it to make sure it actually comes up. And so, exciting.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so it looks like there's a little bit of variety in the lot size. Is it townhomes and standalone houses? Is that, or is this just all conceptual right now?
So we don't have any binding architecture. We don't have anything really submitted to that effect. But the shared wall, the attached units would be townhome in
So
format.
they are attached.
Yeah.
So my big question here is why RM1? Why not RS5?
That's a very good question.
RM1 opens this up to allowing student housing.
So the RM1, without the condition number one, would allow for type of development that you're saying. This developer has not developed that kind of product, student product or apartment product. Their proposal is for the fee simple lots to be there, and as we understand it from talking to them to this point, it would be a for sale product.
Yeah.
The RM1 zoning gives them flexibility for lot size, a much smaller lot size, which helps them on a lot, on a property that has so much topography, those easements, those large utility easements, and all the environmental areas that they have to work around. The RM1 zoning gives them the ability to get that lot yield and the design flexibility to move things around in an efficient way.
Okay. I mean, this is not really an ideal location for student housing. That's one curiosity I had, is why not go to an RS?
Right.
I mean, I like these conditions. It looks like we can get some real public benefit out of this with those shared use paths and the roundabout, that connectivity to the greenway. And we certainly have the need for those fee simple, owner available homes. And this is, School C could really happen. There's a lot happening in that corridor. It has a lot of potential to really meet our needs for increased housing in the foreseeable future.
Anyone else?
Maybe a couple more. Yeah, I know the applicant. He mostly built for single families. He's a good guy. The question about the number 3, is that number 3? The multi-use path. So maybe I'm looking at this wrong. There's a so there's gonna be a roundabout at the corner of Newton Bridge, correct?
And Vincent.
And Vincent, excuse me, yeah.
Yeah.
Where am I missing okay, so on that side of the road, there's no sidewalk, so it just, where's the multi-use path going to connect to?
The multi-use path would make it to the intersection of Vincent and Newton Bridge. It wouldn't be on the developer to continue it onto the other side, but that would be something that could be done down the line. And then there would be the Greenway connection, which is to the east and kind of down slope towards Sandy Creek.
Okay. I'm not seeing it, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
This is in the Newton Bridge TAD?
Yes,
Right.
that's
So at some point, could the developer come and request TAD money to help build that roundabout? Is that anticipated?
That hasn't been mentioned.
Okay, but that is a corridor where TAD money has been mentioned as being used for transportation. So that could come forth. I mean, it just seems that roundabouts and everything transportation related gets very expensive.
He's willing to build.
Commissioner Thornton?
I wanted to agree, well, I do want to agree with Commissioner Link for bringing that RM1 to our attention. I guess my thought now is, if the mayor, the CDO, MDO that we passed a few months ago, do you see that enhancing this project?
To the extent that the goal of that expenditure on the Newton Bridge corridor was to create safety for all users, and that included the intersections, I think this dovetails well with that. Commissioner Davenport, of course, mentioned the multi-use path, and while we can only require a developer to put infrastructure on their property or adjacent to it if it's in the case of public right-of-way like the roundabout, it will eventually connect back to that multi-use path that's now in front of the flats there at General Time. So, if you think about what's likely to happen probably over a series of years, those two paths will connect.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was saying.
Bruce, I did want to ask, I can't remember this detail from the Horton-Helmed project further out Newton Bridge. Did they have any responsibility for intersection upgrades at this intersection?
Not at Vincent, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? All right, we're going to move on. Item 12.
All right, the next item is at 284 Bailey Street, Unit 410. This is a special use request. The request is looking to seek special use approval in an RM1 zone to convert one of the units in this triplex structure to a commercial short-term rental. The occupancy proposed by the applicant is no more than 6 individuals. To orient you to the site, you can see the 10-loop, the off-ramp to the north. Bailey Street extends to the south on the right-hand side of the screen where Grove comes in. This project's built. This photograph is unfortunately dated. Traditional neighborhood, future land use. Zoning is already RM1. And the red oval indicates which structure the unit would be located in. Again, it's a 3-unit structure. So this shows you what they're proposing. They do have to specify which unit would be the commercial short-term rental. The ordinance as currently written for commercial short-term rentals allows one such commercial short-term rental within a singular property, singular parcel. And so that lower, the first floor unit is the one that's proposed for the commercial short-term rental. And here's a photograph of that existing structure. So in looking at these, honestly, we're looking for staff is looking for direction in y'all's discussion on the evaluation of this. And our analysis of it, we use the STR ordinance section 1 statements to help us with our special use criteria, which is a normal practice for us. And what we're finding is there are 3 statements in that section 1 summarized here on the screen, but they're in your report. Section E, H, and K as part of the ordinance from last February that talk about the impact of short-term rentals on housing stock, the impact on quality of life overall, and then the RM district's primary intent being for residential use as opposed to commercial use. The second bullet up here talks about the fact that short-term rentals are allowed by right in RM zone properties, but as a home occupation. The distinction, and this is something to talk about so that everybody remembers, the distinction between a home occupation short-term rental and a commercial short-term rental is the home occupation has a long-term resident. Doesn't have to be the owner, it can be a long-term tenant. Whereas the commercial short-term rental doesn't have that requirement. Staff found, using that information in the special use criteria, that the potential impact on the neighborhood's character with removal of the units for long-term resident occupancy was inconsistent with that criteria. The cumulative effect of these commercial short-term rentals was found to put stress on an already strained housing market. So again, after considerable discussion by the Planning Commission, what they found was that the special use criteria was primarily met when looking at the context of this singular property. But we did have a good bit of discussion. It is reflected in the pink sheet summary, but their recommendation was for approval as submitted.
Thanks, Bruce. Is there anyone else here to speak to this side?
Hey, good evening, Mayor Gertz and Commissioners. I will be speaking to both line items 12 and 13. My name is Alex Akins, 462 Whitehead Road, District 6. I'm here to respectfully request your approval of a special use permit to operate 2 two-bedroom units located at Bailey Quarters on Lexington Road and Parkside Cottages, the one that Mr. Bruce was just showing off of Barnett Shoals Road, as commercial short-term rentals. A little bit about me. I am an Athenian. My wife Meredith and I have lived in Athens for 12 years. We have been operating short-term rentals now for nearly 4 years. In that time, we've hosted hundreds of groups across Airbnb and VRBO. With Airbnb, we have a 4.98 overall rating, and with VRBO, we have a 5-point rating, which is very good considering what other hosts have. It is our absolute delight to provide cozy and professional experiences for all of our guests looking to visit the classic city. This opportunity has also given my wife the ability to stay at home with our newborn August and provided some additional income to help us pay off both of our medical bills. We are Athenians. We live in Athens. We spend our money here, and we plan to raise our daughter here. On May 1st, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this request, and I'm grateful for their support and would like to briefly reinforce why this proposal is both reasonable and aligned with the county's housing goals. According to the most recent College House Market Report, which is dated April 2025, two-bedroom units are largely underleased and well below historical benchmarks for this point in the leasing season. This indicates that the market for two-bedroom units, like mine, are currently oversupplied. Converting one unit to a short-term rental won't create additional strain to housing availability, but rather allows me to respond to actual demand in a saturated market. Further, both locations are zoned as RM, mixed density residential, and allow one commercial short-term rental to operate within property lines according to the current short-term rental regulations. Additionally, these proposals do not reduce affordable housing. Both units are market rate, not subsidized or income restricted. The county's affordable housing investment strategy focuses rightly on expanding access for households earning less than $35,000 per year. This proposal does not touch that inventory. Instead, both listings are located in developments primarily occupied by college students. Finally, as Bruce mentioned, we are fully compliant with existing short-term rental regulations, and there's only one unit allowed in the development, so we're not taking too much inventory off the market. I've committed to being a responsible, community-minded host and neighbor, and I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Aiken. Of course. Is there anyone else here to speak to this project? Seeing none, we'll come to discussion. Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, this item and the next item are similar and from the same applicant and bring up the same issues. I have to say, when I'm listening to this right now, I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? He's doing exactly what we said to do when we made the ordinance last year. And it's revealed between this and one of the text amendments later on, it's revealed some complications with our STR ordinance here. So he's doing what we set up to do. And what this means is, and in the agenda report, there's two things. There's approving his, and then there's also us perhaps directing or going along with what the planning department says, that we need to have more criteria by which to approve these or not approve them. Because right now it looks like whoever gets the first application in per RM development gets that one. And my understanding is that, and smartly so, it's a business move obviously there, and one can be looking around. In fact, the developer of the next item had said to me that he learned that this was a phenomenon, and in fact, in these apartment complexes, that the one STR, tended to be really kept up well because they wanted to get that 4.9 or 5.0 thing. So we have the one question about, accepting his request and going along with this, and then the question about, do we need to, if we're okay with one unit Airbnb per RM, then why do we even have a special use? I mean, we just make that the rule and you go for it, right? Or we should have some stricter guidelines about how we would go forth and either approve or not approve an SDR in that development. The problem is, as Planning Department pointed out that there's 6,328 RM units. So some of them might be really small, and I checked this with Bruce, I talked to him the other day, but some of them might have 200 units in them, and some might have 10 units in them. They each can have one STR, according to our rules. Is that correct? Right. So I'm tending to think now, because there's so many complications with these other situations, that I want to go ahead and use the process that we set up, but I also want us to follow what the planning department asked for and ask them to come up with guidelines that are more exacting about how to approve or not approve a special use permit. Does that make sense?
I'd like to hear some clarification.
There is a text amendment coming up to correct that first issue we were talking about.
Well, my understanding, again, having had long discussions with Bruce about this, is that's for.
There is a text amendment later on the agenda.
But that's for condo setups that are fee simple.
Correct.
Right, and one of these things that isn't fee simple, it would stay with one approved one.
Correct. If they haven't, if they don't have a condo plat
Right.
approved for the development, they would get one per parcel.
Which later on you say is a reason that might encourage people to have fee simple lots, like the one we didn't approve last week on Gaines School. You know, if we go and pass that text amendment, a development like that, all of them could be Airbnbs according to our thing. So, you know, you can explain it more than I attempted to do, but I see two issues. I see us approving this one or just not approving this one and the next one, and I also see us dealing with some of the complications that come out which are reflected in the fact that the planning commission said, the planning department said don't approve, but the planning commission said approve. So that conflict there is what we need to look at long-term.
Well, there's a set of criteria, though. And when the planning department says it doesn't meet all of them, as we said to you before, it's based on a holistic look of all the criteria.
Well,
it's not an all or nothing.
That's what the planning director told me.
Yeah, so if one of the criteria is not met, that factors into our analysis, and we bring that forward.
It's not a final thing just because one criteria, there's multiple criteria.
Right.
Isn't there?
There might be multiple, but I thought his point to me was that it was difficult to find. He was the one who was asking for this clarification of criteria.
Well, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying that when you talk about criteria, it's not an all or nothing thing.
It's plural. Right.
So I don't think the planning commission is necessarily wrong when they say to approve it, if that's their recommendation based upon their review of the criteria.
Yeah. So here's the quote from the ordinance. This may be helpful. When evaluating the effect of the proposed use on the surrounding area, the following factors shall be considered. Not the following factors shall be met, they shall be considered. So we
Right.
look at the 9 factors and we consider them. Yep. So in this case, when you get to the 9th criteria, that's where staff is interested in the outcome of this discussion. The 9th criteria is this, it's a catch-all. It says, other factors found to be relevant by the hearing authority for review of the proposed use. So in this case, we have background statements with the ordinance that was adopted in February of last year that provide factors
I'm
to
not
be
sure I
considered.
agree with that, but we can talk about it offline.
And I think I'm also, for the attorney, I'm also responding to the second bullet point in the motion by the planning commission for the text amendment refers to this as well.
And obviously, as we have this discussion,
I don't think
we
you're right
and we
at all.
recognize that there's a multitude of
First thing I ever
criteria.
heard, Bruce.
Every individual or any body full of individuals is going to weight those somewhat differently, and I think we just understand that's the case.
Yes.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that the applicant does not own these units. They're renting the units and then subleasing them as STRs. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to having these things scattered few and far between, even in single-family neighborhoods. I know we've put the kibosh on that, unless they're owner-occupied. But I do think maybe we do need to revisit the ordinance and then come with like a certain number per complex or some, per, no more than one every 20 units or something like that. Because, yeah, there does seem to be some inequity in this approach. And the applicant did say something interesting that I've heard also from other housing developers and landlords. These 2-bedroom units, the market is saturated with them. The students don't want to live in the 2-bedroom units. They want the 3, 4, 5-bedroom units. Hence, they are turning to our neighborhoods, and that's why we're seeing these big 2.5-story houses that can pack 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 into these homes in our single-family zone neighborhoods.
Anything else on this item?
Well, I mean, I think that it's reasonable to consider an STR here because of that market saturation.
Commissioner Davenport?
I'll be voting no on this one. So a single mom is gonna need a 2-bedroom home. One of the reasons why we created this STR amendment is to slow the growth of the STR that we have in our community and to protect the community that are in place. And that neighborhood may be majority college students, which is true, but there are some families who live out there as well. And So yeah, this item and the next item, I will be sternly opposed to granting STR.
Anything
approval.
else on this one before we move on to the next one? And y'all will take a break right after we do planning and zoning. All right, Bruce?
1580 Barnett Shoals Road, Unit 1010. This is also a special use. Similar request, this one in the RM1 zone again, to convert a detached apartment unit to a commercial short-term rental. The occupancy, again, proposed to be no more than 6. All right, to get you oriented here, we've got Research Drive on the upper left. This is the intersection with Barnett Shoals Road. Again, that is not representative of what the site looks like today.
It has housing.
Right, that's when it used to be the soccer field that the YWCO and the Montessori school, I think, used, but it is now developed with a number of units. Future land use is mixed-density residential, that would not change. Same with the zoning, RM2, not RM1, RM2. This is the site plan, and you see sort of the black oval is around the unit 1010 that has been indicated for the commercial short-term rental. This is the construction drawings for the unit. If you go out there, you can see it. There it is. Staff analysis is similar to the previous, so I won't restate all that. Planning Commission also found, again, after consideration, that the context of the subject property warranted approval in their review of the special use criteria, and so that was the recommendation.
Any separate input on this one? Yeah, absolutely. Of course, yeah. No, every item you're connected to, you get a separate shot. So
Very good.
You
very
bring
good.
us 10 next month, you get 10 opportunities.
Good to know. Well, this will be the last one. So I want to address Mr. Davenport here. So a couple things. One, currently the leasing with 2 bedrooms is at 77.2% in Athens. That was from the April data that I pulled from College House. A good, strong number for a pre-leasing number is 90%. Just to kind of let you know where the disparity is there. Another item that I think is worth noting is the 30% rule, and I had to look this up, so I'm going to explain this to you guys, and hopefully I'm not explaining something you already know, but it's a longstanding financial guideline meant to help individuals keep housing costs at a manageable level. If using this rule, potential tenants would need to generate $70,000 and $88,000 for Bailey and Parkside respectively. These prices will not be received by the target demographic in numbers that create an effect in the AAHFH report. So thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All right, over the river and through the woods from one project to another, Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah, the difference in this one is it hasn't been built yet, and I think the applicant is making the argument on whether or not we support it or not, that these are marketed to people who are not in an affordable housing range, because you'd have to have a 70 or 80%, $70,000 or $80,000 to meet that 30% rule here. So I don't think, this is more of the similar argument here. I would ask, and I don't need a response now from the attorney, because we're not voting on it tonight, but one of the things that I needed help understanding when I talked to Planning Director Lonnie was his reference to the ordinance itself. So, I'm looking at these planning items and I'm going into the codes to look at them, and he is making reference to the ordinance and all of the background information in section 1. And so I'm just curious, or need to know, what kind of legal weight does this section carry as we move forward? So we have what's in the code, and we have the background information there, so that's,
I'm happy to provide some guidance.
okay, yeah,
I'm not
so I
sure
don't need that,
agree
I don't,
with the planning director on
Okay.
his interpretation of that.
yeah.
Commissioner Hammond?
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick comment. I'm having a hard time understanding how if somebody's renting out these properties and then turns around and rents them out for even more, how that's at the end of the day helping our affordable housing and somebody within who can't meet that criteria.
Well, that's true of all this, right, all the short-term rentals. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Especially those that aren't fee simple.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Commissioner Davenport?
Just real quick comment, even people who make $70,000, they need housing as well, because we have a short supply and a high demand.
Anything else? All right, some food for thought. All right, we're going to move on to item 14. I was going to do it right after these two.
Oh, no, these are long text things.
Okay. We have two text amendments to talk about this evening, two sets. The first is a proposed text amendment to sections 91528, 91529 regarding short-term rentals. This current code that we have in place was adopted February of last year. What is proposed right now is to tackle three issues that have come up in the administration of the code since February of '24. First was to address the parcel definition issue so that it includes all tax parcels as it relates to short-term rental uses. And it says in the following zones, but that relates, that's a typo, that relates to the text. Second point, extending the sunset period that was approved in the code as 2 years, that is proposed to be extended to 5 years. And just to be clear, that's for legal non-conforming short-term rentals, which is a subset of the short-term rental uses that we have in the community. And it would add a new code section that would provide a relief valve that would allow for additional time for legal non-conforming short-term rentals to recover specified costs. And there's a formula in there, it's a 14-step formula, by which an operator would be able to provide information, plugging in numbers associated with their operation. And if the resulting number coming out of that yields a period of time that's greater than 5 years, that would determine the amount of grandfathering that they would be eligible to receive. And then the third point is refining the notification procedure requirements. We found the text that was in there now needed to be kind of tightened up a little bit and given some more clarity as to who's responsible for providing the notification and at what distances and who's to receive it. So that's been cleared up in the language that's before you. I will note that this item came before the Planning Commission at their April 3rd meeting. They did table it and requested staff to pull together responses to the three questions on the screen. The memo that was prepared is in your packet. But in short, the first point, they were asking for some clarification on how the rate of appreciation specifically is dealt with, which I believe is step 5 in the 14 steps. We did add some language to pin that down and give it a more predictability, for lack of a better way to put it. And that is something that the planning director is responsible for interpreting, and so I appreciated the additional predictability. The second point is that we were asked to look into the potential for revoking an approved STR use based on violations at that property associated with the approved short-term rental. We did provide a response to that is certainly not a practice that we have in our code. We do not have any sort of process for any use to revoke a use based on violations at a property. We deal with the violations and we bring folks into compliance, education first, and then more aggressive compliance measures beyond that. So no, this does not include any provision to revoke an approved short-term rental. And then the third point was just providing data. How many do we have total, as noted by the software company that we're working with to help us track short-term rental operations, as far as where they are and the type of operation they have that allowed us to create the legal non-conforming list. The legal non-conforming list itself, that data was provided, and then the number of approved short-term rentals that we've processed since February, which is over 100 at this point. So I don't have, it is a lengthy document, so I did not parse it and put it on the screen. But I will tell you that the Planning Commission did recommend approval as proposed. In a second portion of their discussion, which was considerable, they did ask staff to take a look at two things. One was code enforcement provisions for short-term rental. How is that just to track performance, and is there a way for us to come up with recommendations to handle some of our problematic properties differently than perhaps we already are. I did explain to them in response to that we are early in that enforcement process. We do have a staff person handling this, but we really only have about 6 months' worth of data. So we haven't gone through a football season yet, let's just put it that way. The second thing they asked for was similar to Commissioner Meyer's comment, to look at, is there the potential for criteria related to special uses that are specific to short-term rentals so that you can make a qualitative decision on where a short-term rental is appropriate and where perhaps in some instances it would not be appropriate. But their recommendation was for approval as proposed.
Commissioner Ham? Oh, actually, I need to take public input. Sorry. Public input on this item? All right, none.
Sure,
Commissioner Ham?
I'll be brief and have more to say at the voting session, I'm sure. But I'm still confused about the relief valve aspect of it, making sure that that folks who do a short-term rental get their investment money back. I wish every government would do that. I'm sure every taxpayer in our community would like a relief valve when they get their tax bill and invest in their property. The second thing I have take some exceptions, umbrage with, is the fact that if you've gotten so many violations that there's nothing we can do. I remember talking to and hearing a presentation from Chief Lumpkin back in the day when he said, there's always a tool in our toolbox, especially when it comes to people that violate ordinances after ordinance after ordinance, and certainly declaring them a nuisance property or something of that effect could help us. But I look forward to the discussion on how to do that, because I'm tired of getting the phone calls. And if we can't figure something out, then we need to take some drastic measures. I'm not, I get calls about parking. I get calls about STRs that have built parking pads right next to a single-family neighborhood. We don't allow that, but somebody can be living in Utah and get a pass at it for not going through the proper channels. Oh, they'll get fined for sure, but or can go through the process to maybe get fined. But it's not going to change the fact that the neighbors who live there are having to deal with this, and I don't think that's fair. I'm not saying all STRs are like that, but it's just the world we live in that some of the bad actors are not doing the right thing, and if they're not, then we need to have our attorney help us with this. Thank you.
Attorney Drake, to Commissioner Hamby's sort of like earlier component about the relief valve, is there anything you can say about federal law or constitutional rights associated with that? Or?
Let's ask Donald Trump about the tariffs. I'm sure there's a lot of businesses out there that are impacted by his tariffs, and they would like a relief valve from what he's doing. So there's probably, anyway.
Okay. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, most of the public comment we got on this text amendment are from people in my district, and one of my constituents in particular has spent a lengthy amount of time reflecting on this and asking me questions. So I ask, a generosity from my colleagues to make sure I address some of these things here, whether or not they can be answered or not tonight. One is an easy thing, and I think it's available, but we can have before. This is just a request. Isn't there a heat map of the STR locations that we had? If we could get that again, because I think it's important to see when we're looking at this again where all these are, so that we know how many affect people in our district. The second, then I got a lot of questions here, and I'll just, be putting them, I can put them into email too. And some of them are for the attorney, and just a question of why, helping me understand why we're covering all the risk. This is, I guess, the extension of the sunset and the relief valve. Why are we covering, and this probably builds on what Commissioner Hamby said, the risk of the STR non-conforming owners when we're not really covering the risk to the single-family owners who have bought in under our zoning code, which talks about having neighborhoods for families and such to go into. So, prior to the current ordinance, the STR owners were operating entirely outside our zoning code, which made their operations anomalous and unstable. And therefore, any expectations they had of any particular positive return on investment seem unreasonable to some of us. And so that's, I still need to understand that again. Another question, and I'll put this again in the email, have we created two different types of STRs with different regulatory burdens? Because we have the ones that are by right now and then the non-conforming, and and does that put us at legal risk as well? And, I kind of feel for my single family or, just individual homeowners because they don't have an industry behind them to hire lawyers for, 20 grand or whatever to represent them here. Addressing the parcel definition issue that's in here with the text amendment, my understanding of this, again, like the unintended consequences, on one way it makes sense because they're all individually owned, but again, how is this going to encourage all developers or to say, hey, let's put this as simple fee because we can always then move to single, STRs here. And like, again, using the example of the project on Gaines School that we defeated with 68 single fee units, could that not then become a STR hotel? Remember, we heard about that Airbnb hotel? Well, this could be an Airbnb, STR hotel as well. So is that an unintended consequence there? And so do we need to have percentages in there about, how many, and I think this was brought up at the Planning Commission, how many people can, how many STRs can be in a development? Is it okay for it to be all of them? I mean, I want to make sure if we're creating new text amendments that we're not just creating another issue. And then finally, this relief valve. I really need to understand this in a simple way because this has 14 steps. And I'm just, maybe it's my simple understanding. I'm not a business person. I haven't made investments. But let's say I bought the house down the street 5 years ago for $200,000. I put $100,000 down as a down payment, and I've spent $50,000 upgrading it and putting furniture. Let's keep the numbers simple. Like, how much do I have to recoup before I've recouped my investment? And why is that so difficult? I mean, if it were me here now, this is what I just need to understand so I can explain it to people. If I have a house and something happens to it, I can sell it and recoup that. So I need to understand the difference, why this is so complicated in simple talk. Whether you can do that tonight or another time, that would be helpful. Anyway, that's what I need help understanding. What?
I would too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it would be helpful, as you've already offered, to submit that to us in writing.
Yeah, I will.
Because to get the...
Oh, no, I didn't mean like right now.
Right, but to get the relief valve explanation down to very basic, simple language is going to take some work.
Yeah, or even understanding it just in terms of my example there, because there must be, I don't understand certain things about how much I'm
We're happy to
supposed
do that.
Simple talk.
I'll share, Commissioner, for you and the public, the way that I've understood it is that we're in the midst of a transition from what had previously been sort of an unregulated area to one that's now regulated.
Right.
And like with all transitions, the challenge is in that period as we move from one dynamic to the other. And so the relief valve is an opportunity, a legally defensible opportunity to be able to say, hey, you have already spent money on this property. At some future date, we're going to say you can no longer use it as a short-term rental, but this is a way to be able to say, hey, you definitively will have recouped your investment. And so, of course, after the 5-year horizon, or prospectively, if you can defensively say you've spent more money than you have recouped in a 5-year horizon, 6 or 7 years, there will be no more of this kind of short-term rental. But again, the challenge is in this transition period. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what I do like about what we're doing is we're setting up a better circumstance for the future going forward in perpetuity. So it's not like you're going to have new
Yeah.
you're not going to have new investment in a single-family neighborhood.
We know that, right?
That's your opinion, Mayor.
Yeah. And can I respond to my question there and there? Because I think, and this is maybe in my simple language explanation, I gave you a simple Airbnb example with low cost, and it's like, oh, we can recoup that. But I'm thinking about these neighbors who have one that has room for 20 people. They've added on tons and tons and tons of things. And then the answer could be, well, this is going to take ages to recoup because we put so many little things on there. And now Airbnb, just for the record, is now offering services to come to your Airbnb homes, so that if you have your Airbnb, it's not just to go out and experience, but Airbnb allows you in certain cities, could come here. I mean, why not? It's a great destination, right? To come here and do your hair, to come and do your massage. And so that's part of a business model in about 8 different cities across the state. So, I mean, I could, these poor people in Riverbend with this hotel that's supposed to be an Airbnb, they could have lots of individualized service. So I just want to know that we're taking care and addressing that situation.
All right, put those questions in writing. We'll get responses via the same. All right, we've got one more text amendment.
I don't have any.
So, final item for me under new business. This is enabling, a text amendment that would enable recreation vehicles to be used as long-term housing. This was a directive that came to staff earlier this year, largely inspired by a development on North Avenue. And just quick background, our current code regarding recreational vehicles is pretty narrow. The definition that we currently have is on the screen, and there's a couple things to point out that I've highlighted in yellow. RVs in our current definition are motorized vehicles only, so that means they're not towable. And they are designed and maintained for use only as a temporary dwelling or sleeping place for travel or recreation purposes exclusively. So that's the language that we have. Recreational vehicles are not a use because they are a vehicle. And so where we find in the current code where recreational vehicles can be placed or can occur is in the definition for commercial outdoor recreation. That definition is at the bottom of the screen, and it's been an interpretation that RVs are a form of camping, and therefore they fit under recreational camps within this definition. So outdoor commercial uses currently are allowed in these zones permitted by right in commercial rural. That's the only zone where they're permitted by right. And again, this would be for camping, not long-term occupancy. In the yellow, you see where we have special use approval possible for commercial outdoor recreation. Again, this doesn't address the long-term occupancy question. And then we have the 5 zones at the bottom where they're not permitted at all. So the final 2 pieces of background. RVs are not regulated by standard building code. They do not get inspected the way that a structure would because they're not a structure. They are only inspected at the time of manufacture, and what they're inspecting for is roadworthiness and not for habitation. The 5th point is that manufactured housing developments, mobile home parks, are allowed in RM1 and RM2 zones. That's in our current code, those are the only places where mobile home parks could be permitted today, and there's a process for doing that. But what we proposed to you in a discussion in the work session was the following goals, is to revisit the definition of RVs, to expand it to include non-motorized and towable vehicles, which makes a lot of sense. We also have 3 other definitions that needed to be adjusted to make room for that, so we've got those proposed. Second point is to suggest that perhaps as a starting point, manufactured housing developments might be the best spot to start to allow for RVs to be used for long-term occupancy. So that's what we've proposed. So this would be in manufactured housing developments that are approved and developed per code, and using the RVs for long-term occupancy would require them coming into compliance with standards for utility service connections, and we'll talk about that in a minute. RVs would also be required to have documentation showing that they're habitable and in good working order. And so we've got some language that I've worked with the building code official to sort through. Third point, we have legal non-conforming manufactured housing developments around our community as well. A lot of times they just predate code. They are of that vintage. We're proposing that the RVs could be located in those developments as well, just on existing pads. You couldn't expand it without special use approval. But if you've got an existing mobile home park, if you take out a unit and put in an RV and meet the standards that we're proposing, we would be able to handle that administratively with permitting jointly between the planning department and the building inspection department. We feel like this would provide opportunities for manufactured housing development owners to consider taking these in. This doesn't compel anybody to do this. It just creates the opportunity for them to say yes if they choose to. The key here is these utility connections, and so we've got a handful of 3 pages I want to show you. This is the slide that has the definitions that are changing. The definition at the top is in some ways the most important. This is language that was pulled from HUD as they define, or I'm sorry, FEMA, as they define recreational vehicles, because they do use those for emergency housing whenever there's an emergency management situation. So we drew heavily off of that. We did need to change recreational vehicle park to campground to make it work with our commercial outdoor recreation definition, which is the next definition where you see that added. And then the 4th definition is dealing with manufactured home developments. We took out some language in the middle, but what we did was we made it clear that recreational vehicles or manufactured homes could be used for long-term residential occupancy. We also amended section 916.2. There's a general provision about manufactured housing developments just to include recreational vehicles as an allowable form of housing to be within those. There is a final plan requirement section, 916.3. It was so specific about manufactured housing, we added or recreational vehicles just to make sure we didn't have a trip hazard in this text amendment. And then this last slide, all of this language is new, but I've highlighted the areas in yellow that are the most important. So one of the things that staff really wrestled with to make sure that we weren't creating a health or safety or welfare concern with authorizing people to live long-term in a vehicle was to pull apart what are the issues that could come up, kind of troubleshoot it, think about unintended outcomes. This really starts with service connections. So how you get your electricity, how you get your water, how you dispense of your sanitary sewer. Those things are really important to understand, and we have building code when it's a structure. We don't have code if it's a vehicle. But what we do have is code for how to make a connection to something that is habitable. And so our chief building official, Doug Hansford, and I met several times about this. This is the wording that we landed on to give him the latitude to have staff go out and make inspections of those connections, to make sure that the service that is available at that site meets code even before there's a connection made. And then the other thing is structural. So anybody who's gone camping in something with a really large wheelbase, it doesn't rock too much when you walk from one end to the other. As the wheelbase gets smaller, it's not like a structure, it moves. We wanted to have something in there that allowed for if a site is unlevel or if it's in close proximity to other folks that are in manufactured housing, how do we protect their interests with a vehicle that could tip or be blown over differently than a manufactured housing unit, which is required to have hurricane strapping. It's required to be anchored. So the language you see in yellow under section B is that the wheels must be chalked and that stabilizing support systems must be in place at all times when the unit is occupied. And then additionally, if the building official deems it necessary, there may be tie downs or anchors that have to be installed. But he has the latitude to ask for that. It's not a requirement, but in certain instances, we're anticipating we may run into that. And then finally, the last point I wanted to make is with criteria F there. All service connections shall be made and maintained with permanent connections. So again, if you've gone camping, typically you're hooking up with soft connections, a flexible electrical cord, a flexible hose for water or sanitary sewer. That's insufficient for somebody who's not going to pack up and move in a few days. If it's going to stay and be in the elements, those get tired. They're not made for that. And so for them to function properly, they have to be protected. And so that sentence there is what, again, working with our chief building official, there are codes about fixed connections. And there are standards that could be used. We don't have to put that in the ordinance. We can just reference applicable codes, and he felt comfortable that he could administer that. We put this to the Planning Commission. They had a few questions for us, but overall, they suggested approval as proposed.
Any member of the public interested in speaking to this? All right, come to discussion. Commissioner Thornton, this came out of some conversations you had with the development on North Avenue.
Yes, I am very excited. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this. I'll speak next month. But I do want to say that I thank staff for doing all those extra measures to make it happen. I also want to say, as we're talking about affordability in housing, this is a tangible option. And it's not an option for everybody, but for somebody. And I really, again, I cannot thank staff for doing their due diligence. Needless to say, my little man that owned the property tricked me, but it's okay. We want to help somebody else out, but thank you again.
Commissioner Davenport?
Just real quick. So, what about, I just had questions about the current Bulldog Estates. Will this if this get approved, what will happen, what will happen to those individuals? They'll be able to stay longer, or what if they have those? And your presentation is a lot better than what we got. Like, it reads better. So let me go back. One of the things that the recommended official should have parking space located occupied. The utility, there we go. All service connections should be made and maintained with permanent connections and compliance. I was just wondering, with places like Bulldog Estates, are they in compliance now, or would they have to change?
So Bulldog Estates is a special use.
Special use.
So they have a binding site plan. Their layout is binding. It had its own approval. It was not approved for long-term occupancy that was anticipated with this text amendment, permanent housing. I mean, this sets no limit. The wording that we've anticipated here, there is no limit on the amount of time that somebody could live there, whereas Bulldog Estates, Bulldog Park, Tailgate Station, they all have maximums. Yeah.
Okay, and so it would be building inspections and not code enforcement. So we're treating these as a building?
That's the challenge, is we are inspecting the things that we have code for, which would be all those utility connections and the ability to require stabilization of the unit. We don't have any code for inspecting a vehicle, so we're working with sort of the outside of the circumstances with it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Link?
So if someone owned an existing mobile home park and there's an empty pad that used to have a mobile home on it, could that be converted to accommodate 2 RVs if they added the extra connections? What's the argument against that? I mean, because they're smaller vehicles, but if they were to add the extra infrastructure connections, why would that be considered not kosher?
This anticipates a 1-to-1. There was no equivalency sort of, 1 RV equals, or 2 RVs equals 1 manufactured home. It was 1 livable unit equals 1 livable unit. If there is an interest in expanding a manufactured housing development, regardless if it's for an RV or a manufactured unit, there's a process they would follow to do that, and the code sets out how to do that. So they could do it, but they'd have to go through that process. It wouldn't be administrative. It wouldn't be staff level.
Okay, so if we were interested in constructing a CDO that would allow for that, would that be possible through this text amendment?
I would say this, it would not be something staff would feel comfortable with, and here's why. A lot of these developments, those utility connections are typically not new. If they're adding new units, it puts strain on the old unit, on the old utility connections. It's not just a one-to-one. And without getting really deep into specifying lengths of units and coming up with some equivalency, we could be overcrowding a space for one type, for campers, where we have existing neighborhoods, for lack of a better way to put it, where there's manufactured homes with an expectation of my neighbor is going to be in a manufactured home. This is introducing a new type of occupant. So it's a bit of a trial, to be honest with you. And so to double up on having campers next door, maybe that's something we take up at a later date once we have some data and kind of see how this is going.
I mean, I'm just thinking, most of these RVs, there's only one person living in them. They're tiny. But when you have a mobile home, you do have 2, 3, even 4 whole families living in them. And in some of these mobile home parks, there are quite a few vacant units and empty plots as the homes have deteriorated. And I just feel like we could expand the opportunity for this kind of individualized, affordable housing if we took advantage of those empty mobile home plots. I have another question. So commercial outdoor recreational RV parks are allowed in single-family neighborhoods with a special use. If somebody had an acre lot in the middle of a single-family neighborhood and wanted to go through the special use permit, they could possibly start a new park in the middle of a neighborhood, correct? If it were approved.
It would, correct, if it was
Okay.
approved, right.
But, and it is legal to keep an RV in your backyard, but nobody's allowed to live in it.
That's right.
I'm having a hard time with the idea that you could, a special use permit allows someone to go through the process and build an entire park in a single-family neighborhood, but there's no process to go through the special use permit process to allow grandma and grandpa to come park their RV in the backyard and live for a couple months at a time. Or even to, take advantage of football weekends and make a little extra bit of money by allowing someone to park their RV on your property under some, particular criteria through the special use permit process. Judd, do you have any input on that concept?
Well, I think what you're talking about are ultimately policy decisions, and this body has to decide what policies y'all want to support and not support.
So much like we've derived other policy out of group discussions, if somebody would want to put together a resolution to direct the planning commission to consider a concept, that's how that kind of question would be
because right now
answered.
people are doing it. It's illegal.
But process-wise, that's what you would want to contemplate, is
Yeah.
gathering the consensus of majority of the body
Yeah,
and moving
I
forward
hope-
with a resolution. Commissioner Thornton?
I want to speak to some of Commissioner Link's thoughts. I worked really hard to just try to help those 8 or 12 families. That was all this was about. And now we have an opportunity to help more. This is all this is. And this is still a pilot. It's not something that we may find glitches along the way. Doug may come back and say, this, blah, blah, blah. We need to aim for success instead of quantity. And every time we come up with an idea, because I wanted to do the CDO with you, but that didn't happen. So I hope that next month I don't see a CDO talking about putting 2, because we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We got to see if this works. And if it doesn't work, we need to go back to the drawing board. But I do agree that this could open the door for a bigger opportunity when we keep talking about affordable housing. This is just a small little step to it. And maybe after whatever, and there's a resolution that you want to expand what we could do, this commission can get on board. But we got to take baby steps, and we've been struggling. I'm so sick of talking about affordable housing and nothing to show for it. This is the first real piece, It did not help the folk that I really wanted to help, but it's going to help somebody. And the other thing is, mobile home parks do not even have to, like, this isn't a mandatory thing. If they don't still want RVs in there, they don't have to have them, but there's an option for those those mobile home parks to offer something else. And I also want to say, one person does not necessarily live in an RV. There were families on North Avenue. They weren't just, the veteran. There was a couple, but there were families. So it's not a one-person thing. I do think that this is the first step, and I'm going to close by saying thanks staff again for putting up with me on this one. And
I think Manager Griffin had a brief
And I can
comment
go
before
from
we go to
there.
break.
And I think you touched on it, Bruce touched on it a little bit. I would encourage all of you that if there is a desire moving forward in the future to look at increasing the density of units on individual lots within parks, we would strongly encourage you not to do that as a CDO, but that would be something that would need to be looked at. When you're dealing with issues in some of these older parks, if we put 2 RVs on one of the existing old lots versus one, they're going to share one water connection. They're going to share an electrical connection. They're going to both hook into the same sewage, or there's going to be a different solution, and that's really not something we can draft as a CDO from this group.
Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
I know out of the future land use plan, we're going to be revisiting ADUs and missing middle. And, I hope we can consider RVs or tiny homes on wheels, which are technically considered RVs, as part of those options moving forward.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a break until 9:10, and then we'll take up old new business.
Staff has my stuff, we're gonna work it out.
For the moment, it is still Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. We're here for the agenda setting session of the Clarke County Mayor Commission. And we're going to move on to public input on old and new business. And so old and new business includes items 16 through, count them down, 42. So would any member of the public like to speak to any of those items between 16 and 42? If so, now is that time, and you can line up the podium. And again, just provide your name and place of residence.
Good evening. I'm Andy Savoy, 1643 North Milwaukee Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. I am here on behalf of Core Spaces and CS Acquisition Vehicle LLC. We are the owners of 155 Mitchell, which is Hub Mitchell here in town, and we're also the potential developer partner in items 33 and 34 of this agenda. We have been in discussions with the ADDA and with city staff since about November on these items to try to kind of piece together a structure of a deal that could help to achieve a lot of public benefit. We have, the entire team is here. We got Buck and John Williams here from WNA, and I'll be here as well to answer any questions you have when you get to those items. Buck sent a nice summary over the weekend, so I'm not going to really get into the details right now. But I just want to say that we're very excited to be working on this. There's a lot of public benefit involved in this, and it's a very transformational project that we're excited to be a part of. And those public benefits include a $2.5 million private investment into public infrastructure that creates sewer capacity for our proposed project and helps other stalled affordable projects get back up and going. We would contribute roughly $7.9 million to the Affordable Housing Fund under the current code. And we'd be generating roughly $3.8 million tax increment. $1.5 million of that would be going into a TAD. And so, and not to mention, we'd be creating at least 350 public parking spaces as part of the project. So I'm here, happy to answer any questions when you get to that, those items. And one last thing I did want to say is I can already hear the question, like it's vague, there's not a whole lot of detail, but these agreements are actually just agreements to negotiate further agreements that would have to come back for final approval before anything happens. So I just want to let everybody know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Savoy. Good evening.
Thanks for listening to me tonight. I've been attending a lot of meetings about this. I'm feeling it, and I know I felt for y'all tonight when I got here and got to eat dinner at home and watch online. Anyway, this is agenda item number 17.
And just provide your name for the record.
I'm Melanie Aaron, 165 Clyde Road, Athens, Georgia. It's in the Green Acres Crestwood subdivision. We had a meeting last night with Alec Lesley, who is the developer, the representative of the company. And I came away even more convicted that the corner needs to stay CO office because of all of the issues with the constraints of the entry and exit and the parking and that major intersection right there, which is right down the road from a lot of schools and it's one of like 3 major intersections on the east side, very heavily trafficked. And I can't for the life of me figure out how a commercial retail would work there with people coming in and out and traffic leaving Green Acres Crestwood at that's the major entry exit there. And the traffic there on the road and delivery trucks and parking and where employees and customers would park and the church right there and the basketball court and the houses. And so I really feel that it needs to stay CO, and I hope it will because I just don't see it any other way. I don't think it could work. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Good evening.
Hello, Michael Rupersberg, 170 Virginia Avenue, here to chat on items 33 and 34. I support the redevelopment of the hotel property, and I support redeveloping all of the county-owned parking lots downtown. But I do not support using county-owned property for student housing development. And it appears that the owner of the property, the Hotel Abacus, is a student housing developer, and it appears that the proposal is for 900 units. I don't think many members, I don't support county-owned property for student housing, even if it is, we are getting public benefits out of it, and I'd suspect many members of the community would not support that either. We need to use county property, especially county property downtown, for housing for people that live and work in Athens. And I would point to the North Downtown project as a great example of what we can do and what we need to be doing. And that is going to be a great benefit to the community and downtown once it's done. The original plan for this, as I understand it, for the county-owned lots, as I understand it, was senior housing for 120 to 130 units and a parking deck component. We need senior housing downtown. That's the sort of project that we need downtown, and that's the sort of project that we need to use county property for, not more student housing. And yes, we're going to get some benefits out of this. The sewer development payment is a plus. And the developers indicated they are going to participate in the inclusionary zoning. And that is indeed a plus. But let's be frank, what's likely going to happen is the developer is just going to take the payment option and make a payment. And it would be much more valuable to have affordable housing created downtown that's going to stay affordable than have a significant cash payment up front. The long-term value of affordable housing downtown is far greater than the money. And it's kind of obvious to say this, but when we develop these properties, they're going to be like that for the rest of our life, and if not far longer. And so when we're talking about what we're going to do with county-owned property, we need to make the right decision. And this development has come up online in the last couple of days. I learned about it via Reddit a couple of days ago, and I suspect many of y'all have just learned about it very recently. And so this is obviously a very big development with a lot of very big moving parts that is a big project for downtown. And so let's just hit pause. Let's get community input. Let's get community buy-in. Let's make sure we're making the right decision and that we're getting the best deal for downtown and Athens that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rupersberg. Good evening.
Good evening. Just to touch, my name is Michael Smith, to touch on Michael's comments. There's over 2,000 new housing units on this agenda, right? The only community benefit agreement that I can find that's simply find, is the Georgia Square Mall Community Benefit Agreement for all the housing developments that have been done in the last 10 years. So I'm trying to stay neutral on all of these projects. But for the past 10 years, we've been hearing about, well, the community benefit agreement was this or that, but it actually didn't exist, right? And so how many development agreements do we have in play right now that's not enforceable, right? Because there's no legal contractual agreement. So I have two simple points tonight. Use the Georgia Square Mall as an example to negotiate real community benefit agreements. Secondly, right, is if you decide to approve 2,000 plus units at the end of the 30 days, then take the county budget and immediately apply displacement fund money for all the people that are going to be driven out of their neighborhoods and their city. Because if you're in an area of high disparity, the science says that if you build a market rate house, you got to build one unit affordably. If you have a community benefit agreement, you can get away with a 2-to-1 ratio. And this is now being accepted all across the country. So you're going to approve 2,000 plus units and not have a $0 displacement fund. And so community benefit agreements, displacement funds, I'm neutral on all the projects. If we could do those two things, that would be an amazing thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone else here to speak to old or new business this evening? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Scott Haynes. I work for W&A Engineering, which is located at 355 Anita Street in Athens. Speaking tonight on behalf of the Winslow Park PD amendment. I've already spoken at this podium twice on this particular item, so I'll be brief. We appreciate this body's continued consideration of this item as it stands to be a significant opportunity to address some of the housing issues that have been talked about tonight. That said, we understand it's a very large project, and so we also support, as we did the last meeting, the area commissioner's desire to make sure that we've provided ample time for the public to be well informed about this project. We will be in attendance, both as the consultants and also the developer will be with us on Commissioner Johnson's meeting that she's scheduling for the 29th over at the Cooperative Extension Office over on Cleveland Road, 5:30 to 7:30. It's a drop-in meeting. We'll be there to answer questions, and just like tonight, I'm here to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Is there anyone else here this evening to speak to old or new business? All right, we'll move to commission discussion. Item 16 is the one just mentioned, the 45 and 4530 Atlanta Highway and 125 Bedgood Road project. This was held last month. Commissioner Johnson, is there anything else you want to provide now? Obviously, we've got an upcoming public forum.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Mayor. So when I ran for this office, I committed to putting people over politics. That's why I didn't rush to support the proposed residential development last month. At that time, I didn't know enough about the project to take a position, but since then, I've made it a priority to learn as much as I could. I've met with project engineers, builder representatives, shared information with residents, and conducted 2 site visits outside of the Athens community to see the builders' work with my own eyes. I also carefully reviewed the comments and recommendations from the Planning Commission, which, given their focus and expertise, are often more informed on development proposals than this body. This is a significant project, 200 acres, 925 homes. I don't take that lightly. I'm not making this decision in a vacuum, nor by myself. I'm relying on all available information, input from residents, and engagement with anyone who wants to better understand what's being proposed. The proposed development includes 6 waiver requests from the applicant. Of those 6, the Planning Commission recommends approval of 1, denial of 3, conditional support of 1, and partial support for 1. In the applicant's response, they acknowledged the areas of non-compliance and committed to addressing those concerns during the construction plans review stage. So what are the pros and cons of this development? The project potentially offers several benefits, including increased housing options. Every single week, that's what we talk about, needing more housing. Significant green space and neighborhood amenities. Proximity to public transit, internal street connectivity with 3 planned entrances and exits inside the neighborhood, and the potential economic development to support the area's growing population. At the same time, I recognize the concerns, both real and perceived, that have been raised by members of the community and members of the Planning Commission. The community comments were potential impacts on traffic. That is alive and well if you live out on Atlanta Highway. If you don't know, it takes about 45 minutes to get to City Hall now. The other comment I've heard with residents is the limited walkability and integration around the surrounding areas, though this may be improved with the addition of sidewalks and crosswalks. Some of the Planning Commission concerns were, or the comments from the Planning Commission were, the use of rear entry garages, which some feel is inconsistent with the surrounding area. The rear garage design was labeled in the Planning Commission's report as inappropriate, though it is a legal and common design present in other neighborhoods, including my own. And I live a quarter of a mile away from this proposed development, literally across the street. The Plan Commission described the homes as too repetitive or too suburban, without reference to specific standards or adopted plans. Another concern from the Planning Commission was about the development's alignment with existing neighborhood character. I spoke with 3 or 4 commissioners to understand what this means because it appears subjective, and I don't know. But I wanted to just bring all of this information to the forefront and hope people will come and speak to the developers, speak to the project engineers. And one last comment that the Planning Commission stated that stood out to me was that project design is placeless or not visually distinctive to Athens' architectural style. Now, I do value the input of the Planning Commission and believe that weighing both the strengths and challenges of this proposal is essential to making a thoughtful, community-centered decision. These observations prompted me to take a closer look and do further research. Since the last meeting, I drove out of town to 2 different counties to view 2 residential developments by this builder. Truthfully, I saw many features I appreciated, but I also saw features that I did not like, but they were minor. They were also fixable. All in all, it did not affect the overall livability of the community. To further community dialogue, I'm inviting all Athens residents to a drop-in town hall, as Mr. Haynes stated. This is a significant proposal. 925 homes affects all of Athens. And so I just want to make sure people know this is not just for District 6. This is for all of Athens, and it's going to be drop-in on your way home, on your way to the grocery store, on the way to the gym. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but the developers will be there, as well as someone from the project plan engineering firm. I think I said that in 3 minutes. I practiced, so I hope so. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davenport.
Yeah, he went over, well, both of y'all went over the time really quick, really fast. It's
so sorry.
May 29th cooperative extension from,
Next Thursday, yes, that's right, from 5:30 to 7:30.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, we'll follow up the voting meeting. Item 17 is a hold from last month. That's 1075 Gaines School Road. Commissioner Myers, anything new on this one?
Yeah, let me just give you an update. We had I had a meeting, a community meeting with residents who were interested in this last night. Probably had about 25 people there, and the developer who cannot be here tonight. There was a lot of honest back and forth. And so I'm going to be working with the developer to see what the next options are. The next option, really, I think it was really clear that from the neighbors that there was not a desire to have the CN zoning that allowed everything but a drive-through, and whether or not that takes a withdrawal and a resubmittal is still to be seen, but that's something I'll talk about, and I'll communicate that with my colleagues sooner than later. There's a lot of concern there about the type of business, and there was also concern about keeping the aesthetic of that corner as well with the trees. And that's something I'll probably follow up with Planning Director Bruce Lonnie to talk about what another alternative approach would be in terms of dealing with the planned development from years ago and how that could be adjusted if it was resubmitted. Anyway, that's a little update on that, but it was a very good community exchange. I like having these community exchanges up front before the meeting, so thanks to all the people on the east side who came out to that.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anyone else on this one? All right, more TBA. Item 18 is the 155 Whit Davis Road project that was held last month, and I know you've had some subsequent discussions about conditions to be placed on this. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Commissioner
So I'll
Davenport.
be approving this. I've been working with the developer, and I think he's gone now. I don't blame him. But I was hoping he would get up and speak, but I've been working with the developer on putting conditions on the property to make this an actual senior citizen facility, and I thank the county attorney for assisting me with the language.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Off consent now.
Any further on this? Okay. All right, item 20 is proposed all-way yield at the corner of Boulevard and Nacoochee. Commissioner Link, I know you asked this to be held.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to hold on to it. I met with residents and staff. Staff was great. They gave us a menu of options to tweak this to something the neighborhood could be happy with. I sent a proposed design to them today and got a little feedback, and I'll be presenting a CDO.
Thanks, Commissioner. Anything else on that one? All right, item 21 was also held. This is the GOC report to reignite the Land Bank Authority.
Yeah, off consent. Still got some community input that needs to be provided. This is just to get the Land Bank Authority back started, so they will be coming back to us in a later iteration.
And I was the one who asked for us to table it because I needed it, and I want to thank Commissioner Davenport for giving me the information that I needed. But I do want to talk to him because there's a few things that I still, I think it can make it stronger. Maybe that's the word I'm saying. And I'd like to have that conversation with the attorney also. So when I reread it, you did exactly what we had asked over a year ago. But I am finding a lot of things that we vote on, there seems to be some unforeseen consequences, and I just want to put everything on the table. So it's not to disrespect or disregard the work, because, like I said, it is exactly what we asked for, but maybe we needed to ask for a little more, if that makes any sense. So Commissioner Davenport has agreed to meet with me, and Judd is just, the attorney is just hearing it tonight that I'd like for him to be part of that conversation. Thank you.
And I know Attorney Drake has worked on similar projects in other communities, so I think he has good context to provide. Commissioner Johnson?
Hi, thank you. Yes, I was just curious. I did go back and do additional reading about the Land Bank Authority, so there is some flexibility for projects outside of just affordable housing. But it's still, I didn't find anything to say that was for areas outside of being blighted. And so I just wanted to ask the attorney, was it started because it was for blighted communities, right?
I think that's one of the, this is a tool, but it is limited by that, what you're talking about.
Okay, so
you gotta have a way to tie it to property needing redevelopment for blight. That's going to make it somewhat limited.
And I agree.
But it still
I actually
can be,
brought this up in, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
Well, that's just the fact. That's what the statute says.
I agree, that's what the Georgia state statute says, and I brought this up in October, and because I actually initiated a conversation with Assistant Manager Andrew Saunders and the Housing and Community Development Director about public-private partnerships, and this idea came out of that conversation. But in discussing it, I thought it was curious, went home and did research way before this month, like last year, and what stopped my enthusiasm about the concept of it was limited to areas of blighted.
Yeah. I will say staff, Andrew did follow up, and we've explained that to staff, so they know now. But you're right, it's more limited than we initially hoped, or maybe was initially thought. You're right.
So no, I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm just curious why it keeps coming before us if we don't have a significant area in our community that meets the definition of blighted. I requested a list of the county-owned properties, and I went to see them, viewed them, or did Google Earth, and saw a lot of the homes were not in blighted communities.
I'll make a couple of notes, and then I think Assistant Manager Saunders will be able to provide some additional information. So one of the utilizations of a land bank is to acquire property. It's a property that we don't currently own, but that's held up in legal limbo, and there are a lot of properties in the community that meet that definition. The state does have some flexibility around what is technically blighted. We've used that in the past for some other state programs through the Department of Community Affairs too, and so sometimes things that may not, in the mind's eye, be the most ragged properties can be determined to be blighted, and so we've been able to use that definition in the past. So, Assistant Manager Sanders.
I mean, Attorney Drake is on point, and we've coordinated closely that we had hoped that a land bank authority could be more robust. One of the things we looked at was whether or not they could help deploy the financial resources that y'all have set aside in the Affordable Housing Fund, and the short answer is no, not in a loan methodology, because it's not consistent with their enabling legislation. However, there is some benefits to this tool that are, as it's being used in Georgia. So as the mayor discussed, even disposition of our current properties. And so you'll find in your budget document coming forward, I believe Commissioner Thornton, you might have asked for this, what's our current ownership and how much of that could be used for housing? It's not a ton, I'll be quite frank. It's not a target-rich environment, but there's some. And so going through an authority, of which one could be a land bank authority, may provide us with flexibility that a straight market disposition would be more challenged to do. Another way that they're being used is somewhat as a holding entity. So for example, if a partner in town was going to acquire a property and maybe develop it in 2 or 3 years, there are some communities where they deed it to the land bank authority with a clawback provision. It helps to reduce their tax burden. So it's fairly niche is what the committee determined, but it does seem to fill some roles that are not currently filled.
There are a couple of small things, and I was, back in October when we discussed it, I thought it was a great idea too. I just want to make sure that we are following the letter of the law and not going to get in trouble down the road. And so I remember us just tangentially discussing what does a potential contract look like if we exchange land for with a developer, and none of that conversation had started. I would be worried if we didn't outline a contract that was consistent and accurate, and it was the same for everybody, every developer that we work with. So there's no nuance of favoritism. And I was just reading over the weekend, the non-binding commitment to affordable housing is real. And this is something that I heard over the last 2 iterations. I think the GOC's goal is to look for opportunities to build affordable housing, but there's no guarantee that that will happen. And I think having the contract in place, one, I think there's a good benefit of turning over the land with the caveat that that's what a builder or developer will do. But if we don't stipulate that up front, everybody's not going to be interested, everybody's not going to like it, but there are going to be some people who will. If our goal at the end of the day is still affordable housing, I think that is important. And I heard something earlier, and I just wanted to ask if it's tied to it, if there's a reason why this being pushed, and it was put together strike money. What is this tied to the ability to use strike money? Because someone said earlier, well, we can't use strike money. What does that mean? And is it tied to this? If it's not, you don't have to go into it.
I think broadly that would be limited. So what we looked at was the ability of the authority to do loans to third parties for strike fund type purposes, or even for something like LIHTC gap financing. And that's where the answer is probably no. I mean,
Okay,
actually,
thank you.
It is no.
Okay.
I think an authority working with a board and legal counsel, there may be opportunities where they were recipients of strike funds to make an acquisition of strategic purposes, just like we might put the money in the hands of ADDA or the Classic Center Authority or the Housing Authority when certain opportunities exist. It's one of those type tools, but what they would not be is the clearinghouse strike funds for all potential interest in the community.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, on this, I had time, because I didn't have time to look at it last month, to look over that and saw the limitations of this land bank authority. Actually, in there, you list the 5 properties that the land bank already has, and then down in the agenda report, it mentions there may be as many as 20 other properties that something could be done with. But so it is very limited. I see that it's one tool, as you say, but in the agenda report, you also say that it's not an appropriate mechanism to make loans recommended by the Affordable Housing Investment Strategy. I'm assuming that at that August work session that I just heard about, that we'll perhaps learn about some other mechanisms that we can move forward with. And I know that there's also been discussion, and I don't need it all now, of Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is something different, I assume. So, and, I just need education on that down the line. I'm fine with doing this, but clearly there need to be other mechanisms. So I'm supportive of this moving forward as we explore those other mechanisms.
Yeah, what Attorney Drake and I discussed is sort of having that menu kind of laid out so that everybody can see those tools in August.
And I guess that's back to where I'm coming from. I've been going through the actual housing reinvestment strategy piece. And I heard today, well, really, no, I heard it before. I think Andrew mentioned about, first I heard it from Andrew about looking at the creating that trust fund, the housing trust fund. And I think sometimes we get the cart before the horse. And we got 3 projects right now that were designed with the best intention to address the housing, affordable housing shortage. We have 3 right now. And I'm not going to call those out because I think everybody's doing a good job, and I don't want to, But no, the 3 aren't doing anything. The 3 aren't doing anything. And I do think
I can say, Commissioner Thornton, my office has been working really hard with HCD staff.
No, it's not you and HCD.
HCD.
No, these are already done. No, I'm not talking about the.
Commissioner Thornton, is there anything particular to the Land Bank Authority that you want to
Yeah,
mention?
I think that's the reason why I want to talk to Commissioner Davenport with the attorney. There's dollar amount that is on this that I like to see what the dollar amounts are going to be. So I don't want nobody to think that I have something against the plan, but we got to stop signing off on stuff if we don't look at the whole picture. And he may see it one way, and then I'll see something different, but I don't think that we should have our questions not answered and just rubber stamp stuff because it sounds good. That's my point. Thank you.
All right, 22 is a resolution reactivating the Athens-Clarke County Public Facilities Authority. This is for the purpose of a coordination with the Regional Commission that has property where their office is over on Research Drive. Is there any reason we can't put 22 on consent, Judd? It's the public
No, that's a
facilities.
straightforward one.
Okay.
Once you decide on who's, if
All right.
you agree on who your members are going to be.
All right, 22 will be on
This
consent.
is just to allow us to convey a piece of property that's held by us and was paid for by, I think this is where Advantage Behavioral's office is?
This is the Regional Commission.
The Regional Commission, yeah. Yeah, so it's just giving them back giving them their property that they paid for.
All right, we'll put that on consent. All right, moving on to new business. 23, as we've seen in other TADs, is the Community Identified Priority List.
Can we put this on consent?
Any questions first? I'm happy to put it on consent.
As we've discussed, these are just recommendations. They're not binding on the
I'm
commission.
good with that.
All right,
If-
23 is on consent. All right, moving on. 24 is the comparable mechanism on the Lexington Road TAD.
They are both identical when it came to recommendation consent.
All right, 24 consent. 25, we saw in the work session, this is the palette of transportation improvements in the North Athens area funded by T-SPLOST 2023.
I'm going to ask we pull that for discussion because there were no dollar amounts. I just want to make sure I understand what we're going to be voting on. So I support it, you know I do, but I do want to talk about the dollar amounts that were not attached.
We can. I mean, and there's probably not going to be dollar amounts at this point because of where we are in the process, but we'll talk further.
So just pull that for now.
We'll keep it off
Maybe-
consent. Keep it on discussion. All right, item 26, you also saw at the work session, this is just the concept for the Center for Racial Justice and Black Futures.
Consent?
Consent.
All right. Question?
On the, how is it that our rental policy for $1 doesn't apply? Is that sort of a grandfathered in thing that we've been talking about?
So,
Because this is like a 24,000.
this, as I understand it, is a new, not an
Right.
existing activity,
So our other thing is kind of how we've been dealing with.
legacy activities.
Like legacy, not
I mean,
grandfathered.
that's how I might describe it. I don't know if there's any,
I mean, and specifically, this lease is not with Athens-Clarke County Unified Government, it's with the Classic Center Authority.
Yeah.
And so our policy does not address
Oh, it's not our, it's our land, but
recommendations
it's
for
not
our
our,
cousins and the authorities.
okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me.
consent?
Consent.
All right, good. All right, item 27 is again the project concepts for Prince Avenue and Jefferson Road improvements.
Please consent.
And again, there will be a kind of follow-on when we get kind of more cost figures and get closer to implementation. Consent, okay?
Yeah.
All right, 27's consent. All right, 28 is the public art style at Bishop Park, where the pool's just about to reopen.
Consent.
Yeah, consent.
All right,
Wait a
28.
minute, I lost track. What number are we on now?
28.
28.
Dang. And 27's on consent?
27 is on consent.
The art for
Sorry.
Bishop Park.
We're down to 29.
Okay, all right.
All right, 29, following up on our work session conversation, is our ultimate determination about what to do with the 2011 funds for the Youth and Community Enrichment Facility. You know we had a kind of prior version of the project, and that version of the project, given the partnership that was unable to fulfill that fruition, did not come to pass. And so now we need to make a decision. Of course, we had some rich conversation the other day. Anything to follow on?
Mayor, if we leave this on consent, I think staff had 3 recommendations.
Yeah, this is on discussion.
Okay.
It's on
So,
discussion.
and that's my point. So what are we going to be voting? I mean, what,
So this body would have to make a recommendation. Either say, yes, you know, we want to take the funds and commit it to Christine Howard Park, or make a different.
and that's what I'm saying. Okay. So that should come off.
But it's not on consent
Okay,
at this
okay.
point, and we've given you 3 options for your consideration. We've recommended one of them, but it's ultimately your decision as a body
okay.
as to which direction you would like to
Okay.
go.
So you basically gave us homework.
Yeah.
Of
I got
course.
you.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Okay, I'm ready. No, I'm ready to go.
Down to, down.
So I think we'll have some more discussion in the next couple of
30.
weeks. I'll be talking
Yeah.
to y'all, so we can come to some consensus. All right, item 30 is the public art location for the East Side Library.
Consent.
Yes, I'm consenting.
Consent.
All right.
Nice mural.
30 is consent. Item 31 is an ability to enter into lease for the 125 West Washington Suite 775. And this would be where our entire capital projects team would move.
Consent, if everybody's okay with that.
I'm good. I'm good.
We'll have, can we have a tour when they get in there?
All right, well, you can head up there right now. 31 consent? All right. 32, this is, we previously had discussed at retreats and then seen the kind of full draft of, for the work session, is the strategic plan.
I say leave
I
it
would
off.
like to pull it.
I just leave it on the discussion.
Leave it on discussion. Yep.
That's a big one.
All right. Item 33 is the intergovernmental agreement with the Downtown Development Authority for the development of surface parking lots on Jackson Street. Little history for the public. The Downtown Development Authority and the Unified Government had a prior development agreement for what became termed to the DDA, at least as the butterfly lots, that kind of very unusual triangular shaped parking lot that's at the corner of Jackson and Doherty, as well as a almost similar shaped parcel just behind that reaches toward the Lay Park property. It was somewhat unfeasible to develop those two unusual shaped triangles for the Downtown Development Authority, and so when there became a new owner of what most recently has been known as Hotel Abacus, and stretching back in time, the Graduate, History Village, I'm sure I'm leaving something out, essentially a property swap became an option where we would be able to get the benefit of a new parking facility that I certainly hope will be where we can consolidate parking that's now along Doherty Street. And then, as discussed earlier, there would be nearly $8 million contributed to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund through the inclusionary zoning code, as well as some below-market retail space for artists and makers and the like. Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I want to thank the ADDA and the developers for inviting me in on the discussion on this for several months now. You know, I came into it determined to see that there would any kind of public-private partnership would have extreme public benefit. And I think we're really getting that. That's rare, especially when it comes to, you know, something which is definitely going to be a student housing project. But they are taking advantage of the inclusionary zoning, and there's going to be a huge contribution to that affordable housing fund. I think it's like $7 or $8 million, which could be crucial to completing the NODA project. You know, getting that affordable housing downtown, right across the street from this project, and, you know, hopefully some senior affordable housing, as was part of the original IGA envisioning. It's not just the parking deck that's going to come out of it. We're also getting a new sewer line, which the NODA project cannot move forward without that increased sewer capacity. That project is dead in the water. We're not getting any additional affordable housing until we upgrade that sewer line, and it's not going to happen anytime soon through this local government because we're busy working on another portion of the sewer line. There's also the TAD. This is in that East Athens TAD, so it's looking at $2 or so million a year going into East Athens. And the partnership with the ADDA guarantees that there will be public space, public rentable space. They're also saving the Foundry, which is a historic building, but it has no historic covenant protections on it. These developers did acquire that adjacent hotel property, and right now, by right, they could demolish it and build their student housing with no public benefit. By entering this public-private agreement with the ADDA and doing this property swap, we're able to get these really, really significant, really, really expensive public benefits out of it. You know, I'm not a big fan of student housing, but the reality is we live in a university community, and UGA is increasing their enrollment every year, and I would rather see these students in this location than in a location more central to downtown or in our neighborhoods. I'm really hoping that we can pull some of these kids out of our residential neighborhoods and into a community like this, you know, right downtown where they belong, where they're not adjacent to neighborhoods. And we can start opening up some of those single-family homes back to families.
Got Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Davenport.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Link actually touched on it, but I wanted to confirm the revenue figure you quoted was, I think you quoted, or maybe it was Andrew or Brad? I'm not sure, but it was $8 or $9 million that could be realized with this swap. Is that correct?
A little under $8 million, and that's based on the per unit cost to have a payment in lieu arrangement in our inclusionary zoning code.
Okay, thank you so much for confirming that. So if, let's say it's at the most, $8 million. And based on the agenda item that was approved for the North Athens Classic Center TAD, I think it was last April when you all approved it, that it was a 70-30 split, so that's 5.6 million. How does that get,
So just to kind of separate two different pieces of this.
Okay.
The inclusionary zoning code allows in the commercial downtown zone solely to have somebody who wants to get a density bump, rather than building affordable housing on site, contribute to that affordable housing fund. And so then at a subsequent point, the commission could decide how they wanted to spend that $8 million. Now, separate from that, because this is in the East Downtown TAD, those new dollars will accrue every year. And so based on that prior vote, and this is what you were thinking about, 30% of that money would stay west of the river and 70% of that money would go east of the river.
okay, and so
So those are
that
two
would
separate
be
pots of cash.
two separate pots, like the 70-30, correct?
Is the TAD money.
Is the TAD money. And is it disseminated to the communities annually at one time? And based on what was approved earlier about like the proposed list, I think, for the East Athens TAD, and like it goes into those areas of identification, what they said they wanted to do.
So those TAD dollars accumulate annually.
Okay.
And of course, they grow over time because you have more valuable property, and thus what that property throws off between the base value and the newly realized value of the zone is going to grow over time. So those dollars continue to go. And then what will happen is that based on that conceptual list that we saw and we had approved, and I think Commissioner Taylor modified it somewhat, then individual activities could come forward, either public-private partnerships or private sector improvements like transportation improvements and things like that.
Thank you.
Does that help?
That helps. I just wanted to know how that part worked.
I've got Commissioner Davenport and
Yeah, just
Commissioner
real brief.
Myers.
Commissioner Link mentioned, like, I would rather the students be downtown central to where they're gonna be, potentially going to school at than in single-family neighborhoods. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity to build student housing, a great location to build it.
Commissioner Myers?
Well, I'm not as thrilled about it because I have so many questions. Because I didn't really, this might have been going on for a long time, but I really didn't have any idea it was going on. And I think it may have a lot of public benefits, but I don't think the public knows about it yet, because I surely didn't know that much about it. It is a continuation of student housing, but I just want to have the discussion out loud. We have to, now this, it feels like are we just going to give over all of downtown to student housing? Because now it's like, it was going down to Dudley Park, up by the arena, now it's going across, it went down Broad Street, it went over here, up from Broad Street. So, yeah, maybe this is the best place, but to me, as someone who's been here for 40-plus years, I do feel like I have been turning over downtown to students, and at least we get tax revenue. So, that's just a gut reaction, but I do have some very specific questions on this as well. And that is, okay, let me get to the right thing where we are. Explain vague language. Okay, it says, in terms of the pilot thing, it said that we would have pilot for 5 to 10%, and you guys seem to have an exact number, like 5% to 10% of units would be affordable or have pilot, but you're giving it a very exact number. Is that number decided on already, that's in the intergovernmental agreement? So that's one thing. Then it says the government agrees to...
That number is not in the intergovernmental agreement.
Okay, so...
There'll be a subsequent development agreement, and I do think it'll be
because
in
5 to
there.
10%, half of, if 10% is 8 million, then 5% would only be 4 million, so there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
It also said the ACC agrees to fund a maximum annual liability of $500,000 for the developer to construct additional structured parking. How long is that going on for? I don't know any details, and how are we paying for that? There may be a way, but I'm not sure from reading this agenda report. And then it says, ACC agrees to consider the use of such tools as we are available to assist in funding public infrastructure or public improvements necessary. So, I mean, are we going to be using the TAD money actually to pay for the sewer? Like, that seems very vague to me, so I don't understand that. This seems like a very big project for me to digest and evaluate. Maybe it's easier for you all because you've known about it longer, but for me, it's new here. The saving the foundry structure, according to what I'm reading, it says it'll receive a historic facade easement, and I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean it just shows like the front wall will be saved?
Basically means they can't touch it. They're going to protect the exterior of it.
The whole exterior, and not just the front facade, okay. So I do have questions about that, and I think this is taking, I mean, it's not just the foundry, because this is tied in with those parking lots, and I know there's already been something in the past on that, but once again, this is a big chunk of downtown where there hasn't been any update with public input. It's a time of year where people are gone, we're working on the budget, and hey, let's get this in here. So I feel really, uncertain about approving this in the matter of 2 weeks as we're working on a budget and hiring a new manager. And there's lots of questions here. So anyway, there's my gut reaction, having read it last night for this one and the next item as well.
Just at least one component piece is that there is, at least at this point, no proposal to spend any TAD dollars on the project.
What does that vague statement mean, though? To consider the use of such tools as available to assist in public infrastructure necessary for the development?
So an example, one of probably dozens, would be the ADDA could bond finance some construction that would be repaid through parking revenue, for example.
Well, but this is under the ACCGov, not the ADDA section. So, I mean, I just need that to be clearer for me, because if it's ADDA, it'd be under that section and not under our section.
Commissioner Thorne.
I do think that Commissioner Myers is bringing up some good points. I wish we had those discussions about everything that comes before us, and that kind of, but we don't. And I think that I would feel good if Commissioner Myers' questions were answered, maybe sent an email for all of us, because right now I support it, but but I'm just the type of person, I just want to feel good about what I support. Now, when you're talking about that area for students, coming up, when we had the debate, and we'll be talking about it later with the RAISE grant, when you're going up on that hill, that's all students up there. So you're not isolating. They're already there. So it's not like we're all they're all over there. So and I'm gonna say this: as much as I am for affordable housing, single housing, I know that the students are not going away. They're not going to disappear. But I do think that some of us have been in these conversations informally and formally. I talked to, and Commissioner Myers has not had that privilege, so I would feel good. I would feel better if these questions are addressed.
Clearly.
So we all can feel whatever, and you still might not be happy with it, but I would feel better that you at least are getting the information. And if this is an opportunity to make sure Bethel gets to the second phase. So my concern is about, it's not even Bethel no more, what is it? NoDo. That's my concern, is that this creates an opportunity for that second phase to happen.
And we'll follow up on all those questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Myers.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I mean, I haven't had a recent financial update on NODA, and if it's 8 million, I mean, these projects are very expensive, and 8 million becomes a drop in the bucket. Is 8 million, is that gonna make it? Is there gonna be more? Is there, so I just would need to understand that, like you're saying, okay, that'll be used, and then we can do part 2, but I haven't,
NODA has, I believe, 5.
No, I know the phases, but the financing is if we gave the 8 million, lent it, whatever it is, gave it for this, would that be enough? I don't even know that, so.
And it may not be, and that's
Okay.
why I think that your questions have to be answered, because I don't have no answer now, but I do know this gives us something. And so I'm not trying to minimize your concern. I just know that I support that Bethel Home project from the beginning. And if we don't have a resource to go to that second phase, I feel as though we failed.
And it's important for the body to recognize, we haven't had a formal request from the Athens Housing Authority. We anticipate they're probably going to look for some gap financing. And of course, this body will have to decide any funds expended from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, whether it was gap financing for that project, land acquisition elsewhere, other public infrastructure, or what have you. So, Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I mean, it's just important to note that NODA cannot move forward at all with or without money, without that sewer line being upgraded.
Yeah.
And this gets that done much more quickly than this local government would be able to get that done.
And that's a good segue to item 34, which is the sewer line itself. And of course, this development would rely upon expanded sewer capacity, as would other forthcoming developments in the area, including Phase 2 of NODA. So this just facilitates quicker access to sewer expansion than we would be able to do on our own if we were paying for it through public utilities funds. So, any questions about 34? All right, move on to 35. 35 is the update to the collective bargaining agreement between the Unified Government and the Professional Firefighters, IAF Local 2795. We talked about this a little bit in budget, of course, because there are a couple of specific expenditures that we anticipate embedding in the budget. It certainly seemed to be the consensus of the group to spend that, approximately $40,000. So I've got Commissioner Davenport and Commissioner Thornton.
Yeah, last year we voted on this during the budget, and just question why now we're voting before the budget. So like when we do our budget thingy, we need to allocate 40,000, take out 40,000?
So, of course, under the original plan, this would have been the same night as budget approval, but given that the state software needed upgrading, budget approval will technically be a week later.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Thornton?
I would like to have some discussion about this, so that's all I was going to say.
Okay, all right. We'll leave this on discussion. All right, item 36 is a grant-funded transit management analyst, and so even though this is grant-funded, we still have to authorize the position to be created.
Consensus.
It's great.
Consent.
Okay, 36 is consent.
Yep.
All right, 37 is the Office of Operational Analysis FY26 work plan.
Consent.
All right, anyway, we've got the auditor here, put him on the hot seat.
Consent.
That doesn't get to speak too often.
I can assure you, he'd rather not be here.
We better do consent. I'm gonna stand here all night.
All right, well, we are winning. The more consents I'm writing on this page, 37 is consent. Item 38, we can't put on consent because it's title only, but this is just a request to rename the Linden House Arts Center's South Gallery after a long time Athens-Clarke County employee and arts administrator Nancy Lukashevich. Well, we can't put it on consent because it's title only, but.
It won't be ready to be voted on.
Oh, that's right. This is the first of 2 cycles. Thank you. I appreciate that reminder.
So we won't see it next month?
So our naming policy has to keep a name in front of us for, is it 2 cycles?
60 days, once we've processed and begun the work. And so what we do is we will place it on your agenda. As much a reminder and a notice to the community that this is taking place and to help get the word out, but you won't vote on this actually until your July-August cycle. And by then, the timelines required under the renaming policy will all be met.
All right,
I have a
30.
question.
Yeah, question.
Is there an agenda for it?
There will be one.
Oh,
There will
that's what
be.
you said.
And this
I'm
is just
sorry.
sort of placing on the table that's forthcoming.
Oh, thank
We
you so
also,
much.
we also got an email describing this
Yes.
from the manager.
Yes,
That,
there should have been an email.
Week ago, 2 weeks ago.
A while
something.
back, and it's almost a mini
It's all the
agenda
It's like
report.
an application,
Yeah.
yeah, with the
With the
information in it. Mhm.
I know that's frustrating.
39, of course, will be held to a special called session on June 10th, when we approve the budget. Again, the state has software that's necessary for every local government to use, and they needed to upgrade that software, and it got upgraded later than we would have preferred. So it kicked back our taxpayer bill of rights hearings and then ultimate budget approval to June 10th. But of course, as we mentioned earlier, we'll be talking budget day after tomorrow. All right, item 40 is an application to Senator Ossoff's office for congressionally directed spending for completion of the Christine Howard Park and the pop-up park outreach vehicle.
We're good.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, so, we have a proposal that we're considering to use the, SPLOST funds to complete this building, yet we also have a grant. Can someone explain these two different agenda items to me? They seem to be for the same thing. Am I incorrect?
We don't believe that the 3.49 that's in this grant, if it is received, will fully cover it. It does open up and afford another option to you that you could offset the balance of what was needed at Christine Park in lieu of paying it all. This came in after the last agenda item had already been put together and prepared
Okay.
in order to get that money pushed out. This was an opportunity that came up, so we pushed it out. If we were to receive this grant, it potentially affords you, for example, if you were to vote with the staff's recommended option to put the money into Christine Howard on the previous agenda item, and then we were awarded this grant, then we would come back to you and say that this much of the money will offset the grant to finish it, and then you can consider where to move that balance into another project.
Okay.
So it's just another opportunity. Timing makes it a little complicated, but it was certainly an opportunity worth pursuing.
Okay.
And of course, one of the opportunities within SPLOST generally is that you can shift funds to other project categories within SPLOST. So I don't think this closes off any potential future route.
No.
All right, 41, as discussed at the work session, is the consideration of options regarding the North Avenue Raise Grant, with staff's recommendation to be to seek transition of this to a planning grant.
I do plan on having a conversation with Bradley by next week, because I do have some questions. But can we just discuss this next week?
All right.
I mean, next month, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Link?
Yeah, I'll be reaching out to Brad as well with some questions, concerns, vision forward, et cetera.
All right,
Happy to meet you.
we'll keep that on discussion for sure.
Better
Anything
get me
else?
next week, though.
Are you leaving after
Get
that?
them quick, that's right.
Better get me next week.
That's right, you are.
I'll see you in the morning by 8 o'clock, Brad.
Maybe
And
it's
then,
Stephen I need to reach out.
42, just very briefly, there was legislation that passed the House and Senate and was signed by the governor. That's House Bill 85, and that modifies the way that Superior Court judges will be compensated. We anticipate this has a revenue positive impact on Athens-Clarke County. So we'll be seeing the agenda report in the next week. That's title only for now. All right. Motion for adjourn. All right, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Davenport, all in favor?
Bye.
All right, we are adjourned.
I think